I'm not retweeting this. I'm reposting it.
Do you know when what was it? There was like some debacle with like the French, and people were like, "Oh, let's use freedom fries instead of French fries." Like that's how I feel about this. The renaming of reposting, like it just feels stupid.
It's actually probably the worst branding play I've ever seen. I can't think of one worse because we're going from like what I felt like was like a top 10 brand in the world to like literally nothing for no reason. Like I can't really think of a good reason to do this. And it was like it was such a like a term like people use tweeting, retweeting like it was such a strong brand like the logo was good like I don't know like the brand was the envy of everyone. It had the best brand of any of the social media sites for sure.
Yeah, I feel
Um,
like when your site turns into your brand turns into a verb, you made it, and there's nothing that you should do to change that. Because like, are you gonna say I'm Xing now? Like, you can't. What are you gonna
you can't.
do?
It doesn't make sense like because it's such a downgrade like on every category. And yeah, like we'd saying Google is really strong because it's basically what people use for search. Like Coke is really strong because people use for soda. Like that's what Twitter was like in terms of it's to the point that it's been rebranded and everyone's still calling it Twitter, still calling it retweeting. That's how
I'm.
strong the brand
I
was.
refuse to say it. I refuse to say X.
Yeah, I'm not saying it either because it doesn't make like I literally like I feel like I have to clarify to the person because they're always like, "What? You did what now?" You know? Like it just doesn't flow, bro. It's terrible. But uh that's not what this is going to be about. So okay, so we're going to talk about according to this tweet, SmashCon, SSBM rank, and Amsa. Okay, I can work with that.
Yeah, and just general catch up because it's like our quarterly episode. Although
Makes sense.
I have to say, being I think for a while, like I would have the devil voice would frequently win out in terms of like being conscientious of posting or creating content. Where I think I had very perfectionistic habits, where I'm like, now I don't care, but it's also made me very thrilled to do content. So there might be regular cadences where I'm just like, yo, Blur, do you want to do commentator's curse? Because I'm just in that kind of mood again.
I mean, you know me, man. I do this show because I want to spend a couple hours with one of my best friends. That's
Aw.
really what it comes down to. If people watch or people don't watch, it doesn't really matter to me. Because realistically, whether they watch or not, it doesn't really affect my life very much. With all due respect to them, they seem cool, and we get to talk about it. Well, you know, a game we love, and it's fun to just hang out. That's basically the way I look at it. So, um, yeah.
Yeah.
So whenever you want, I'm down. It's fun.
Okay, cool. I'm like more down, and I don't think I'm as in my head when it came to content. I think the large issue actually was, I think when I thought about Smash content, I'm like, oh, this should probably be a video essay. But video essays take so long to do, and I'm just like, and then the barrier is so high. But now I can just tweet. Like I just posted the pew pew thing. Right? I could have made a video essay on it. It would have probably taken me 30 hours. Instead, I can tweet that this was a big moment for Marth.
Why would you do a video essay? Since when do you do video essays?
I mean, I've
You've
always
never done a video essay.
Yahoo.
Okay, but you weren't the one editing.
Yeah. But that's what always prevented me from doing content. It's like, oh, this is the barrier to entry. So
The editing is the hard part, right?
yeah.
Like the writing and like the idea is like so much easier than like
Yeah.
the making of the video.
So if anyone wants to take any of my like kind of historical melee tweets and turn it into like a video, I'm more than happy to give it to you. I don't have the effort to do it. But anyway, were you at SmashCon last weekend? I'm like 50-50.
I didn't go, no. I'm gonna be at Riptide, I think, and I'm gonna be at Big House, and that's gonna be my year.
Okay. Riptide and Big House.
Yeah.
Did you at least
I was at Smash Factor a couple weeks ago, so that was pretty fun.
yeah, you were telling me it was a really good tournament, both like just as like the in person experience and just overall, right?
Yeah, it's better than all the tournaments people are going to, frankly. Like on a real level, like there's no reason this one shouldn't be a super major. It's in Mexico City, which is an easy flight. Like it's not even like, oh, this is international. It's like it's right there and it's in a dope city to visit. Like there's really no reason. I actually don't understand. I think it's just that people didn't know. And
Yeah.
I think next year they will know. That's all
I,
it is.
and it looked like just like outside the tournament too, there was stuff to do, which is really nice. I think
Mm-hmm.
the appeal of Evo is that it's in Vegas, although some people don't like Vegas. But it looked like based on the pictures, you guys got like tacos, you guys had like good
Yeah.
bars, and the vibes were
I
good.
can I can talk about that so short. Are we started with the show yet? I can't even tell.
I mean, in the end, we can cut, right? So like, I have to stream up, and I can always cut the VOD. So we're just
All
chilling,
right.
we're vibing, and it's part of the show. Like
All
we're
right.
kind of like the
Tell
yard, but less cool.
Well, tell me when the official. I mean, I guess you're right. We don't have to have an official start. We always used to do that. Like a
Yeah,
little.
we're talking like I mean, because you already kind of gave the topic list, right? And we can just kind of go off of that. You're like we were talking about.
Okay. Fine. Sure. Okay. Well, in that case, I'll talk about Smash Factor since I brought it up.
Yeah,
Smash Factor, in terms of production value, one of the best I've ever seen. Period. Like period. In fact, the best I've seen since uh years, actual years. So their center stage was a full square of LEDs, and their main stage was a large LED wall. If you don't know TOing, LED is far more expensive than projectors. Your favorite event uses projectors. This one used LED. Way more expensive, and I was shocked when I saw that. It had signage all around the venue. There was like cosplay contests. There was an actual, something I really appreciate. There was like it was a much more diverse crowd than normal. I'm not used to that at these days. It wasn't the normal 95-5 gender split. It was actually more like 60-40, which I was like, oh shit, nice. So they did a lot of things to, have more than just, games. They had like merch. They had booths, tons of stuff like that, which I think is going to get even bigger next year because next year is going to be free and with a massive prize pool. So, like, I really think that's going to be bigger. They had the FGC there, and of course, Mexico City itself is a really fun city. So we had awesome food. It was very cheap. As far as traveling to a major, it's going to be cheaper to go to Smash Factor than it is going to be to go to like an NA major, which is going to be frankly worse, right? Like in a random city. Like you'd rather go to Mexico City, which is like an actual life experience, in my opinion.
yeah,
Um, and not just that, but I felt like they treated us, the quote unquote VIPs, if that's what we are, really well. Like they drove us around. They paid for literally every meal we had. They had a back room. Um, they kind of like wanted us to feel good, and I think it worked. And I think we all left going like, "Yo, we've got to tell everyone about this because, Smash in a spot where whenever a good event happens, we ought to support it. Like we're not, we don't have like an extreme wealth of extremely good events, and especially one that's like within NA time zone, an easy flight for everybody. It's pretty much a no brainer.
yeah. How much was the flight for you, by the way, for that? Because usually, if I go to like Vegas, it's like 100. If I go cross country, it's like 400. Like,
So mine, I bought mine 2 days before the event. So mine was a lot more expensive than it ought to be. So I think mine was like 600. But normally LA to Mexico City is super cheap, like 250, 300, maybe even less. So that is, I can't say like the year round pricing, but overall, it's like flying to any other NA city,
yeah,
right? Like it's not hard to go to Mexico City. I go to Mexico City all the time in general. Like that wasn't my first time there. I have friends there. And so it's not difficult to go to at all.
got it. And then, because I have a homie there, his name is like Patrick. He's like part of the larger esports scene that like has a
Hmm.
house there, and he's always telling me to go. And I should probably eventually make a trip.
I mean, Mexico City is one of those cities that you go to and you're wondering why you don't live there, like straight up,
Yeah,
because the super, frankly, the expat areas of Mexico City, which is where a lot of my friends live, are insanely nice. Like some of the nicest areas in all of North America, like maybe the nicest. Like they're that nice, and everything's so cheap, and the food is so top tier, and you don't have a lot of the downsides of living in America, and so it's kind of insane the value you get out of there. They have good internet too. Mexico is known for their good telecom, especially in Mexico City. So it's like you just pay less rent to live better, or you just buy a house there for pretty cheap relatively. Obviously, Mexico City has been moving up in price with all the expats thinking about it. The if you guys follow immigration, It's been slowly turning the other way around, where we're the ones who want to go to them, which makes the wall very ironic.
Yeah.
Like, because living in Mexico is actually pretty freaking dope, relatively.
Yeah.
Um, and so you see like big pockets of Mexico City, like large pockets of Mexico City, being people speaking in English. And so if you don't even know Spanish, don't worry about it. Like large pockets of it are like that. Now I'm not saying to gentrify the whole place, and if that's good or bad, but what I'm telling you is, um, when you go there, you won't be lost, not even a little bit. And even though it is a cultural experience, it's still very much a part of North America, and you see the bleeding over a lot too.
So we are buying a house there together as a couple. Is what
Dude, I'm in. Let's do it. It wouldn't even cost a lot. So let's just make it happen.
let's go. Um, that sounds really sick, and I mean, if for Tafu fans, unfortunately, it might be a little more difficult next year because I'm having a kid. Knock on wood. Scheduled for January, so the baby would be 6 months old, and I don't want to leave Vicky by herself. So maybe I make it. Maybe it's the year after, but nonetheless, I'm pretty excited. Did you get to watch a SmashCon last weekend?
Before we go to that, I I haven't got an update on this. If you guys have you guys, or if you even want to tell people of any idea about names or anything like that, is there anything?
Baby
If you're not
news.
willing to tell anyone, just say that. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I think,
If
I mean, it's a boy, so like we know that we found out pretty early. It turns out um, you can actually do like a blood test, and you can find out rather
Mhm.
quickly. Like, I forget
Yeah.
what week exactly, but it was really early. But the flip side of it is names are tough, like because like you kind of have to think about it. So we haven't really thought of a name, and we're running through ideas, but we haven't
Yeah, you
settled on
guys are
anything.
really early. Can I tell you how my sister? So my sister's currently pregnant. She only has like 2 months left, a little bit less than that actually. And do you know how she came up with her baby name?
She went to a website and randomized it.
Nope, she went to ChatGPT. This is a GPT baby.
Okay, so practically
Unar-
went to a site.
Unironic. And it came up with a really good name. The name is Caspian. So it's gonna be Caspian West Blackman is gonna be my nephew. I'm gonna be a first time uncle on that. Um, and so it actually worked out pretty well. So I know, like, cause I told a few people that, and they were like, "Really? You went to a robot to name your child?" And I was like, "Well, it came up with a really good name." Tafo, if you ever get really stuck, it actually did a good job.
Yeah. You know what I just realized? Because like these topics, like with the podcast, I'm kind of because you just brought it up and we're doing the podcast. I think coincidentally, two ideas just kind of merged together. I'm kind of curious to see if because YouTube automatically does closed captioning, and so there's a script. If I can just give the audio sample, because like the whole script of today's episode, and have it generate timestamp and see what
You
happens.
probably could. I don't know how to. I've never done that before. But that's a great idea.
Because like who else wants to like sit through 2 to 3 hours, right? I think the moment it generates
Hmm.
the closed captions like of the text or audio to text, I think we can probably get a pretty good um list for YouTube. So I'm excited to try that.
Yeah.
That's my like new chat gbt application. So
Yeah.
SmashCon might be a little bit too recent because, like, if we go chronologically, like we just had the rankings come out. I'm not sure how up to date you are with it, or if you were following the past week. Because I know you've
I
like
mean, I watched all SmashCon.
okay, but like
Yeah.
technically the rankings came out a little bit before that, and that kind of highlights
Hmm.
context going into it. So I'm kind of curious. Like Zayn number one, I think that's to no one's surprise, right? Like, um, and there's
You say that, but I would like to point out I was on my friend Jack Zilla, his show, Four-Side Fights, and
shouts to
one of the
that show.
questions asked, shouts to my boy. One of the questions asked was, and this was like a few months into the year. They asked everyone, "Hey, who do you think will be number one on the summer ranking?" And everyone else said J-Mook or Cody. Everyone else, and I said at the time that the cream rises to the top. Zayn hadn't won any majors at that point.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think Zayn's going to get number one, even in summer. And everyone was like, well, okay, come on. There's not enough time. There's only a few majors left. I was like, I still think he's just better than everyone. I think he's going to do it anyway. There's enough majors that I think he's going to still find a way to become number one. Um, and just saying, uh, you know, that once again, it's another one on the scoreboard because he did get it, and I think just as an overarching point, um, that okay, and some people are gonna like tune out because they're gonna think it's blatant Marth bias, and they're wrong because that's not what this is about. Um, I genuinely believe that Zayn is like 2, 3 tiers above the next best player. I know that's a controversial opinion. I know most people lump him in a tier with like the other people that can quote unquote win majors. Um, I don't. I think the results put him in the same tier as those people because he hasn't had an insanely dominant year yet. However, I think in terms of skill, in terms of game plan, and in terms of just knowing the game, I think you have to be pretty out of touch to think that they're close to him because they don't even think that. Um, like the there is a degree with which he has underperformed relative to his skill, which is crazy because he's been the number one player, right? But I legitimately believe that he is tiers above them. And this is what could become scary because he's won 3 of the last 4 majors. Is that I think we could have a moment, and people aren't ready for this yet, where he just starts winning and doesn't stop winning. And there's going to be some people who'll be like, Blur, he didn't even beat the Sheiks on his way to winning these ones, blah, 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 blah. Bro, you guys think, and this is why you guys are stuck on Reddit and not actually at the events. You guys think that he's afraid of the Sheiks, when in reality, they're afraid of him. They're terrified of him. Everyone is terrified of him. They're all scared to death. I've sat there. Why do you think Cody tweeted that he lost like 100 games in a row? Do you think Cody is beating Zayn in 100 games in a row? Has that ever happened for him in his life? That's never happened. It's not a thing that's existed in it, like in their existence.
Yeah.
But Zayn does that.
So can you because I think when you say 2 tiers, it's still like you probably have your own definition of what that is, and just so that we kind of get a clear understanding of what that means, like, can you point to like a comparison to another era where like maybe it's like a 1 tier jump between like the best and everyone else, and like 2 tiers? Like, what is your like equivalent in Melee history?
In terms of skill, the only time I remember a player being this far ahead was either Ken over his field, or Mango at his peak over the field. Like I'm talking about like 2012 Mango, right? Even when so Mango's results also didn't show that his skill was that far ahead in that era, right?
Yeah.
Because he was going like Scorp and stuff, but he was actually that much better than everyone, right?
Yeah.
And everyone kind of knew it.
Yeah. I mean, he did the
yeah.
classic, like, if you won a tournament, he'd play you and just destroy you for like an hour, like, and it was not close.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm including Armada in that because I think even Armada's best moments, his skill level wasn't that far ahead of Mango, for example, or HBox, for example, for me to be like, yeah, but if he just plays well, he'll win.
I think
right?
it's a minor nitpick though, because like I think there was a time right before Royal Flush where like people are like, we're giving up on like this. It's so boring because Armada's winning everything. That's like how dominant he was. So I
sure, and I'll fully admit that Zayn's results aren't there yet. And I think a lot of it has to do with he's gaining his clutch with time. He's getting more clutch with time. This is what I'm saying. As he gets more experience and as his tournament performance starts matching his skill closer and closer, it's gonna get bad. And I don't know if people understand how much better he is than everyone. And that's what I've been trying to say. I've sat there on Discord calls where he goes against top player after top player and they lose to him for hours, like not single friendlies for hours. That's not normal. The other top players in history, I've been here for 20 plus years. They don't usually do that to each other, right? Usually it's possible. And so when he plays well, they don't win. That is like the bottom line, and that's like a thing that usually was reserved for Mango, right? Was usually like, oh, Mango when he's on point, he's unstoppable. But we're in a point, and I think Mango even feels this, where if both Mango and Zayn are playing well, Zayn wins, right? If Zayn's playing well, he beats everybody. It's like not. That's it. That's the bottom line, right? And so much of it comes down to, can you throw him off his game? Can you get him doubting himself? Can you get him swinging in bad ways? And since Marth himself is not a great clutch character, I think Marth's a great character. That's not a Marth John. It's just widely known that like Marth takes a lot of neutral wins to win sometimes, especially when people are at high percent, Marthritis, etc. He gets put into positions where he has to clutch in extremely like repeat and nuanced fashions that have like. Whereas he can like do one bad side B and get shined, or like he could like loses stock very fast, and he's getting better and better against that. Like, he just was about to lose a set to an up tilt rest, whereas on the other side, he'd have to win neutral like 15 more times to beat HBox, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not saying that Marth doesn't beat Puff. It's more saying that like those situations can be tough for Marth in terms of closing things out, and he's getting more experience in that. And as he gets more experience in that, it's going to get worse, and he's getting better faster than everyone else. That's another thing no one's talking about. The number of things he's adding at every tournament is so much more than the next best guy. Like, he's just literally getting better faster.
Yeah, I think a large part. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I think Hungrybox should have won that set. I think Hungrybox is playing really well. But I think the large difference is this: like, if we like, I have the last season's like head to head between the top 10 players. Although like Akla's up there with Kodorin. I think the large issue that I kind of see with a lot of the bracket runs, and you know, kind of hinted at it with Amsa, right? Like, here's my rule of thumb with brackets. If you have one person that frequently makes top 8 that you're not good against, like you're like 8-2 or worse, or 20-80 or worse, it's fine. You will occasionally not run into that person and you will win, right? Like, you can win a tournament. Once it gets to 2 bracket demons that make top 8, you're kind of out of luck. Chances are you're gonna run into one of them. If you have 3, you're just screwed. You're not winning a tournament.
You're just not winning tournaments. The math gets too bad. The math gets too bad.
And when I talk about this with Zayn, yeah, like, granted, he has slightly losing records with Jmook and Leffen. But if you look at game count with both of them, it's 50-50. Even though the set counts are slightly Jmook and Leffen favored, right? Jmook up 4-2, Leffen up 2-1, and Grand Jmook had controller Johns or whatever.
Yeah.
The game counts are 12-12 and 7-7. So, like, even though you can say, like, he has a couple of bad matchups, they're not bracket enders. Like, he can win those.
Oh, he can not only win those, but like, I expect them long term to be his favor.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately. Overall, like, I mostly view them as 50-50 maybe at the moment, maybe slight his advantage. I know I know the results don't say that. I just truly believe that, and I think they will bear out that way. And I think everyone else, he's heavily advantaged against.
Yeah.
And you know, that's like, no player can even say anything close to that. Like, that's why I'm saying multi-tiers above. Like, not one tier, but multiple tiers above in terms of his likelihood to win. And like, when's the last time he got worse than 5th, right? That's like an Armada stat. Like, that's an Armada levels, right? And I think that's going to definitely stay true too.
Yeah. And then I have to, you know, I think I also have to give props to Cody. Like, he does have like one pseudo demon in Mango, and you know, he's taken a couple sets, but like, Cody's like I would say Cody's like a close number 2, and granted he got number 3. I think he's stepped up a lot. Like, I think a lot of his matchup spreads are actually incredible when you look at the top 10. Like, he's down on Moki, but like, most of his matchups are pretty dominantly his favored. And, you know, he does have Zayn. So, like, I put him, like, a little bit below. Maybe I don't put him 2 tiers below, just on results. But to your point, you're kind of looking at this future forward, right? Like, the results don't show today. But you wouldn't be surprised if for the remainder of 2023, he sweeps minus, like, 1 event. Let's say he wins the next 4 or 5. And in 2024...
That would not surprise... That would not surprise me. It would not surprise me if this gets more dominant, right? Yeah. Because, like I said, he's getting better faster. Melee is such a deep game where... everyone views it as like, oh, well, everyone's going to catch up to the best guy. But that's not, but Melee's so deep that the best guy can improve faster than the field, right? So they can actually increase their gap rather than everyone else catch up in terms of skill. You know, one of the things that Daigo says about Street Fighter that I really loved, because I was playing Street Fighter and I was like kind of shocked how quickly I was climbing. Like, I was like, wait a second.
Where did you end up at?
I was like in like plat or something, but like, that's not that impressive or anything. But like, getting to like a decent level in a game, and I'm telling you, that took me a couple days, right? Getting to that level in Melee takes years, right? So I wasn't used to that idea, and I know Street Fighter's ranks are weird with win streaks and stuff like that, but overall, like, I was doing the same combos that the best players were doing. I was doing, like, obviously I'm not nearly as good as they are, but a lot of the stuff was there. And what Daigo says about Street Fighter is, like, one of the hardest things about Street Fighter is that it's hard to differentiate yourself. Basically, he says, yeah, you're going to learn this stuff. You're going to jump to a competent level quickly because of the way that game is built, right? But then differentiating yourself and making yourself actually, like, consistently win over people, that's hard in that game, right? Melee is not like that. Melee is not like that. Melee, it's really hard to climb skill from a baseline, straight up. Like,
Yeah.
first time you touch a controller, really hard to get to a baseline. Insanely difficult. It's actually, I think, a negative thing about the game. But it's super easy to differentiate yourself. It's really easy, even when you're at the top level, to continue improving and to continue finding new optimizations and new things that you can add that will give you an edge. And so, just because he's the best doesn't mean he can't get better faster than everyone else, right? Literally, he could get. There's so much to Melee that your day one player who still like has to learn wave dashing, this massive thing that's going to help them get better, he can get better faster than them, right? Like legitimately, and he probably will, right? At a faster rate. Like that jump is so insane, and that's what I'm seeing. Like when I watch these games, I'm like, yeah, he just added like 15 new things since the last tournament, and I watch his opponents, and I'm like, they added a couple, they did okay, but it's not the same. It's just not the same.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is, definitely like Jmook and Leffen and Plup can like earn Amsa kind of contest him in games. But like even though I'm not sure if this head-to-head table's up to date, but if I look at some of the game counts and some of these head-to-heads, like sometimes you look at the box score, you go like this team has like 55 wins, right? And you don't really see like the point score differential in like the games. Like Zayn is 6-0 on Hungrybox. Guess what the game count is?
It's probably real bad. I'm assuming it's wait. Let me think. 18-4 or something like that.
It's 18-4. And I
Oh
think
my god, I'm godlike. I'm godlike.
and that includes like I think that includes the recent set where Hungrybox took 2 games. So I think prior to that he was like 2-15.
And you're saying like Hungrybox by all accounts should have won that set. First of all, he wasn't going to win a second set, so it's not like Zayn was close to losing a tournament. Like the way the first 2 games were the most like, oh, that's how. By the way, that is how you beat Zayn. The first 2 games of that SmashCon Grand Finals is a how you beat Zayn playbook, which is something crazy happens. He gets knocked off his horse, and before he knows it, he's down 4-2. Right? Yeah. He got rested like twice in both games, like in no time. Like nothing happened. If Cody gets a crazy shine, or if something insane happens in terms of the variance, where Zayn is now like on the back foot, then yeah, maybe you can beat him. But if it turns into like a consistent game plan versus game plan game, you're gonna get owned, right? And that's what the set turned into by the end. And the second set would have turned into that even more. Zayn was just like not ready on the first 2 games. But I promise you, if they were playing a first to 20 or first to 25, it would have ended up being like 25-5. Right, and the first 2 would have been the one he won. Right, the first 2 would have been the one he won, and he would have lost 3 more, and it would have, Zayn would have won 25-3. That's what I'm trying to tell people is that I've been in the venues and watching friendlies and this stuff. It's like it's not as close as sometimes these results look like.
Yeah,
like he's actually just a lot better.
Sometimes I hate using kind of subjective analysis, but I think one of my favorite moments of like kind of Zayn's development as a competitor actually came within the last year. Remember Smash Summit 11 with Mango?
Yeah.
So I think he may have talked to you about this, and I think you and I have talked about it. There's a moment on Dreamland, I think in like game 2, where Zayn's already up 1-0, right? And Mango's off stage. Zayn could have gone off stage. He doesn't, and he stays on stage. He chooses a safe route. Mango still loses that game. But then Mango, I talked to both of them about this, so this isn't speculation. Mango, at that very moment, even though he lost, saw that Zayn was on stage and said, I can win this. And the reason why he thought that was Zayn was playing safe and he was playing not to lose. He was saying, you know what? I don't want to win this on my own terms. I hope and pray that you mess up. And he let Mango take initiative.
And this is kind of what I'm getting at. That I think is the untold story about all this is that when his opponents walk off stage, they kind of shake their head and go, I can't believe I won that. Right? Because they are so used to playing friendlies against him and getting freaking owned. And they're like, oh, he just didn't play like the friendly, right? Like, and I happen to win. They're as baffled as everyone else, right? And it kind of ends up being like that. And like he won't go for that offstage one of the edge guard, or he won't do what he's used to doing because he's on stage and he's trying to not lose in some of those situations because he wants it so bad. So you see that. But I think he's been getting better and more clutch with literally every passing tournament.
Yeah.
Like if you just are really he's He's getting clutcher and clutcher. He is going off stage, and he is making plays, and he is playing like less not to lose. And that's it's gonna get worse,
Yeah.
right? And so much so that I say even like in the periods where like let's say J-Mook was beating him, I remember moments like this is all documented on J-Mook's stream where he was just mumbling to his own stream like, "Damn, this guy's so much better than me," right? That's been the vibe for a while. That's been the vibe for a while. And you know, the results haven't bared yet, but they will. They
Yeah.
always do.
I think the other interesting question is we have like the preservation of like a super counter pick, right? Like, commonly it's been like, like it's more contested now, but like we generally say that Marth on FD versus Fox has generally been Marth favored, right? Leffen picks Sheik and to kind of preserve the ability to have a super counter pick against Ice Climbers. Like, do you think it's fake news that the Ice Climbers, or should he keep it to maintain that super counter pick?
I mean, so me and him have talked about it for a while, and I think if anything, it's only FD. Stadium is not good enough, and I think the hard thing is that he's really bad at switching characters between games. So in Lud's event, it's Grands. Um, he was only gonna think about going ICs if it was game 5 FD, right? So the idea was if he has a counter pick on a game 5, then at least it's at the end of the set, right? But since he had to reset even then, probably he'd only want to do it in set 2.
Yeah,
The hard thing is realistically like his Marth is so good. So
and Leffen
using
was
ICs for yeah, go ahead.
and Leffen was playing. I just want to know, Leffen was playing really good that day too.
Yeah. Like
But
above his normal level.
yeah. Anyway, keep going.
And so, like, is it fake news? No, I could see him messing around with it more. A big part of him going ICs is because, like, so our conversation before he went ICs in tournament was he kind of just needed to do it to just get it out of his own head, right? Because he'd been working on it and thinking about it for so long that every tournament that he didn't do it was another tournament where he thought about doing it, you know? And so it's just like, hey, let's just get like something on the board, win or lose, see what happens. Me personally, like I think his Marth's so good he could just do it and it's fine. But man, that matchup's bad. Man, IC Sheik is horrific. It's one of the worst matchups in Melee, especially on FD, in terms of top tiers. So I don't blame him because it's a pretty harsh counter pick.
Yeah. And so it's like interesting. I definitely think the Marth can do it, and maybe it's like 50-50. But the interesting thing is when you think about it, like if that's your bottleneck is like a 50-50, like you're pretty happy with that.
You're doing all right. You're doing okay.
Yeah. Like cuz like when I thought about it, right? Like I've been talking about like the big writing on the wall, and Amsa's talked about it this first. Like I wouldn't have tweeted the way I did if he didn't talk about it first. It's like Amsa's 0-13 against J-Mook or against Cody and Moki, and then
Yeah.
like in the past 6 months, like we think about it, he's come to Vancouver. He's been training more than Cody and Moki have. Like I think Amsa probably spends 10 times the effort in terms of time and thinking about the matchup more than Moki and Cody do.
Yeah.
And it's just getting worse. Is kind of the thing of
I mean, the big thing is that Moki's ascent, which is super undocumented. I think we have a new top 5 player, and like I feel like everyone just didn't say anything about it. Like, hello, like that doesn't happen in Melee that often, right? Like the last person to like break into the top was J-Mook, and that was a big deal last I checked, right? And now Moki's over here surpassing names like, he's ranked higher than Mango and Leffen, right? Isn't he?
No, Leffen's top 4.
Leffen's 4th, right?
Mega Hungrybox.
Right, he's higher than Mango and Hungrybox, which are 2 of the greatest players of all time, right? 2 of the 3 greatest players of all time. He's literally just got ranked higher than them in Super Smash Bros. Melee. That is a monumental achievement. Even if it's for one period, even if it's not like forever, that's crazy. And what's insane is it's starting to look like it's actually just his ranking, right? It's not looking like, oh, he just like got one summer rank in and like he's gonna end up being an 8th to 9th type of guy. I think Moki actually might be a top 5 player, right? It was kind of like how when Cody was climbing up, that we were all kind of like, is he actually like top 5, top 3? Like, or is this like a little aberration and he's gonna come back to a more normal level, right? Is he gonna just become a top 10 player? And it turns out he's just a top 3 player, right? And with Moki, I'm like, I don't know, man. This guy's kind of got the sauce. It looks like he might just be that good. And I think that makes it so much harder for Amsa because Moki's roommate is Mono, one of the better Yoshis in the world.
Yeah.
And Fox destroys Yoshi. For some reason, the world has gotten itself to thinking that Yoshi is far better than he is.
Yeah,
like, I don't know why they started thinking that, but Yoshi's not that good.
So there's two points here. I think Moki comfortably is the gatekeeper of the top 5, similar to how King was like when he wasn't doing as well. Like I think there's a lot of parallels in terms of records. Like King beats everyone below him back in the like 5 God era. Like he wasn't winning events. Like if I look at Moki's head to head, he's 3-2 against Hungrybox, 7-0 against Amsa, 1-0 against Plop, and 2-0 against Kodorin. So he's very comfortably like ahead of that.
That's a top 5 player, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I don't think those results are flukes. He's gonna keep beating Amsa. He's gonna keep doing well against HBox. Like he's gonna keep losing to Zayn, and he's gonna like do like 50-50 or sometimes win the Fox Heroes. Like that is a head-to-head spread that keeps you a top 5 player long term.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think it's gonna be a fluke. I think he's just gonna be that dude.
I think the issue that it comes up for him and why I think he doesn't have as much notoriety as Jmook is that he hasn't won a big one yet. He's consistently hitting 5th, 4th, 3rd, and I don't think we've seen him in grand finals that often. Right, the closest was against Mango recently, and he got 3rd, and it was unfortunate.
It's hard to win big ones when you can't beat Zayn.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's like the bottom line. Now I think there's like. He can win tournaments where Zayn either falls off or doesn't go to the end or isn't in attendance. And I actually think for his own sake, he should go to some of those events.
Yeah,
right?
I think he needs to get one in his system, right? And I think it's similar to like Amsa last year. Like, he was making grand finals and he was just like making uncharacteristic errors. And once he won that first one, he like had a little mini streak, right? And I think just Moki needs that.
Yeah, Moki has a major in him. He could win one now. He's got the skill level for it.
But I think the hard part is like asking Zayn to not be in grand finals is like asking Peak Armada to not be in grand finals. Like it's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, it's unlikely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Amsa's situation is actually a little bit better because Plup and Wizzy aren't active. But if they were, he literally can't win right now.
Yeah,
right.
Dude, Plup won 25-2 in that Red Bull exhibition.
Yeah, it's bad, real bad. So there's that, and Wizzy wouldn't be 25-2 level. No one would be, right? But would be pretty bad. And that isn't to say. So it's not like Amsa has these really problem matchups and everything else is free, right? No, the rest are really hard, right? And the rest are kind of like, who knows who's gonna win, levels. Like, he's still really favored against Mango, I think. He's still like, I don't like his odds against Zayn personally, but it's not like unwinnable for him for sure.
I mean, Amsa Mango might be 50-50. Mango won the last one, and they've been kind of going back and forth.
Jmook has been doing slightly better, though Jmook's mostly had an Amsa problem. Like Amsa has been a very big problem for Jmook. But point of the matter is that I don't think he's like destroying the rest of the field. And then he has walls which are like not like, oh, he can take sets sometimes. They're like he just can't win, right? And that is problematic. It's made even worse by the fact that he plays Yoshi, a character that I think will make picking up a secondary even harder, right? So it's not he can't. I think you tweeted that. Oh, maybe you should think of picking up a secondary. I don't think he's gonna be able to pick up a secondary, Tafo. I don't think he can do that.
Yeah.
I legitimately don't. I think he's an incredibly talented player who can learn things really well. But I've watched his Marth. His Marth is worth the mine by a lot, not by a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't say that as an insult. I say that it's just true, bro. like it's just not like this is not close. If you don't melee,
I think it's like rough, right? Because like I do believe he will eventually take a set against Cody or Moki, and he might take 2 in a streak, and then people are gonna look at them and be like, Amsa's figured it out, and then he's gonna lose 10 in a row again. Like
10 in a row, exactly.
And to me, if he ends up winning 2 sets, or let's say he even wins 1 set, like Cody's just gonna be like, okay, I guess I have to think about Yoshi now.
Yeah, and then that's gonna make it rebound the other way, right? And I mean, like, his Falco is better than his Marth, so that could his other option. And but like, is he? I mean, do we really think that his Falco is gonna start like last I checked? Didn't Cody just beat Mango in Fox Falco? He's gonna get. You guys think that Amsa's Falco is gonna get better than Mango's is against Fox, and that's gonna be his Cody solution? Like, how many years is that gonna take?
Yeah, so
How many? Like, it's gonna take like 3 years.
this
Like,
is
as talented, he's so talented, and I'm saying this. I don't want to doubt him. It's just more like because he plays Yoshi, a super weird character. It's not gonna be easy to pick up a secondary, especially for him, right? It's like Falco and Marth are like not pick up and play type of characters.
yeah, and so I think your conclusions align with how he's thinking about it, because I was in his stream today and I watched the kind of the stream highlights from earlier, like probably like a week or so ago, and he went on GG Melee. So I think he acknowledges, so he's going back to Japan. I think his work visa expired. He has one more tournament left on the horizon, which is Shine. And then I think part of the reason why he hasn't heavily invested in alternate gameplay is because he's had so many tournaments. He's gonna go back to Japan, go into the lab for a while, and then I
Yeah.
think his approach is he's not gonna play that character the entire set. Like he needs one counter. Like if he's in one, like it's like a one stage counter pick is what he's thinking, whether it's Marth or Falco.
I'd have. I just don't think he can win single games on any stage against those people
Yeah,
for years. Like I'm not talking about like, oh, he can't do it for 6 months. I don't think he'd be able to do it next year. I think it would take over a year and a half for him to start taking games. Um, and that, again, I'm saying that I really believe in him. I've seen players pick up characters and do well in the past, but it's one thing when it's like ICs versus She on F.
oh no, Blur froze. He does look pretty funny here. You're coming back now.
Sorry, I'm on Wi-Fi right now. I'm not on. I'm not on Ethernet.
Okay,
So
it's
I'm in
all
my new
good.
place.
You talked
And I have
so we where we left off was you're talking about like one stage, like you're, and then you're making the comparison to Zayn and Ice Climbers, and then that's where you cut off. So it was about like probably
Oh, so what I was saying was that that like ICs on versus Sheik on FD is a simplistic game plan, which is a lot of execution testing, and the combo game is heavily in IC's favor. So you have to win less interactions. When you have to win less interactions to win, you only need a couple tricks to take the game,
yeah,
right? Um, Learning like Falco Fox one stage, you have to learn a lot of interactions, right? That matchup is insanely deep, and so is Fox Mark. Like these are like two of the deepest matchups in Melee history, and some of the most developed in the metagame. And so it's not like it's just an easy one to just just pick up and do, especially considering where his Falco and his Marth are at right now, right? Like they're so far behind, and they're like it's most people when like let's say when Plup was switching to his Fox in all of a sudden, his Fox was already good, right? Like it didn't take that long because he'd been playing it as a secondary for a long time. Amsa hasn't been, right? His Marth and his Falco are just not like anywhere near top level. They're not even high level, right? And that's kind of where I'm getting at, where I'm like, it's gonna take him a very long time.
yeah. But I guess like so like if you're in Amsa's shoes, right? Like he can very comfortably. Like, I think maybe just slightly below Moki in terms of like, yeah, this guy's gonna make top 8. This guy can is probably gonna finish top 6. I think the hard part is like that's probably not enough for him, right? He's tasted some wins, and I think he's very quickly come to the conclusion like if I want to keep winning, I'm going to have to do something about this, and it doesn't seem like this is Yoshi like for everything.
So it's two things. Either he invests a couple years in a secondary and he switches characters. And he would have to basically suck up the fact that that secondary won't basically take games for a very long time. And then if you're asking me on like a 2-3 year time span, can he do it? I think so.
Yeah,
Right.
he's a
I just don't think
competitor.
he do it. Right. And he's so good. He's so smart and he's so hardworking. I just don't think he can do it this year or next year. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the big
and
temptation. Go
mhm.
ahead. I think the
But
big
there is a second option. The second option is just to just figure it out with Yoshi. Which last I checked, we thought Yoshi couldn't do it until he did it. So he's a madman. Maybe he can just do that.
Yeah, I mean Glex, I can't pronounce his name. Did say he like because when you're going to tournament after tournament, right? It's not really a time to really lab out things because you're traveling so much, and like maybe going to Japan will make him lab out things. I think the hard part here that I see is that when you move to Vancouver and now you have a lot more time to dedicate to Smash, whereas in his past life in Japan he didn't. I would kind of expect an upward trend in terms of like certain matchups, and they went in the reverse direction, and that's what has me a little worried.
Sure. I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to say if him being an NA helped or hurt. I think overall, like, I mean, the most successful part of his career was this era, though, right? Ultimately, in terms of results, you can't just take away the first half of it where he was like a top 3 player, right? You're right. It started to go another direction in the second half of it, but I don't know. I think a lot of that was those people not being in his bracket path for the first half, because
Yeah, sure.
Plub
Yeah,
would have
yeah,
beat him. Plub would have beat him either way, right? It just did. It never happened because Plub wasn't at tournaments.
yeah. And I think it's like pretty interesting because I think when we look at certain players, it really does come down to like who is in the top 12 that it's like actively playing, right? When Wizzy is playing, when Johnny and Nunn are playing, right, and it's Foxes and Falcons, like Mango wins a lot more, and it's not like
Yeah.
he got better. It's just look at his bracket path. There was that one tournament, was it LACS, where he played 3 Foxes to win the tournament, and like Mango himself would says, "Yeah, I just got Foxes."
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy, and it just highlights your original point of like how much Zayn like all Sheik bracket will be slightly like the worst case scenario for him, but like for all these other players 2 through 12, like it is heavily a bracket dependent thing of whether they finish seventh or second or first.
Right. Right. And you bring up a good point. Like that. The most recent era where Mango got number one was when there was 3 Falcons in the top 10. Right.
Yeah,
And where'd they go? What happened? Right. And Amsa's best period was when Plub inactive, Wizzy inactive, and all like. Do I think that current Amsa couldn't win Big House again? Oh no, I absolutely do think. So I don't think he's like it's that different. All that really changed is Moki became a top 5 player, and he ran to Cody more, right?
yeah.
That's all that really changed. I don't think he became worse as a player. It's just you know he a new demon emerged, and that makes his odds of winning so much harder.
Yeah. And so it's gonna be interesting because I think Hungrybox is definitely not going to pick a secondary. Like that's not on the table. But I think what's going to be interesting as this meta develops is I think we're going to see certain interactions where if everyone comes to the same event over and over again, they're going to start thinking of like a one character, one stage counter pick for their demon.
I don't know. I don't know because like I said, like it depends on the person, and often it doesn't make sense. So like you bring up HBox as an example. I view HBox and Amsa in a very similar spot. Where how many years would it take HBox to have a secondary that could realistically do well against his demons and Cody and Zayn?
Remember that
Years.
one? Remember H Fox versus Mewtwo King that one time?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like it would take him years. It wouldn't be easy. Um, and so like I don't know. I don't think it's easy. It's because both Puff and Yoshi are pretty weirdo characters. I think for those characters, it's pretty tough to pick up a character, and move on. I think when it's a more standard melee character, or if like let's say you're picking up one spacey for another, or you like are going and picking up a secondary Sheik when you have a Marth or something like that, or a Fox to a Marth or something like that. That's like way easier, than what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I think and then I think they're also their aspirations are different, right? Like I am, to your point, I'm more of a believer in Amsa developing a secondary because his goal is very different than Hungrybox now. Hungrybox is essentially a content creator that makes top eights and will occasionally win once in a while. Amsa like wants to win. Like there's a very different mindset between the two people. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
so okay, so like, and I think the other cool thing, right? If we're gonna kind of I want to kind of celebrate some other people. Coderin making top 10, very cool, right? SoCal homie.
Congratulations to our boy.
And I think we have a lot of we have a lot of newcomers. Like if we kind of look at the top 50 lists, like we have a lot of people that are new to the 31 to 50 range. So like, CPU zero, the bats, like, I'm not Crike, um, Malachi, like there's a bunch of people that have made it, and it's kind of cool to see that in like a new era we're seeing like now like a bunch of people not only hit top 100 but they're hitting top 50.
Yeah. I mean, it's really cool. It's kind of like it takes you like sometimes you forget how quickly things change, right?
Yeah.
Like, isn't Chem in like the 20s? Isn't that wild?
28, up from
Yeah,
66.
that's like wild. And I know some of these things don't get celebrated the way they used to, and of course, it's just a summer rank. It doesn't, obviously mean as much as the end of the year rank. But nonetheless, bro, we'll take it. That's really impressive.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing, and it's kind of a sad, maybe we don't care as much, but it's a sad day for SoCal because like, when we think of like big house crews in like 2016, 2017, SoCal was such a strong powerhouse. And like MDVA and Tri-State didn't have like anybody, right? It was like a free win for SoCal to just win. It'd be like a 5 stock win. Now like we can't really say that anymore. So it's cool to see that other regions have stepped up in the last 5 years.
Is it cool to see?
I mean,
Sad
like,
to see.
I mean, it's sad. It's sad to see our top players like drop in skill, but it does show that there are other regions, thriving that aren't SoCal.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
And in SmashCon, right? That was our latest event. From Zayn one. I don't. I mean, the only interesting thing that really comes to mind that we haven't talked about is Doc Lee.
All right,
Which
Tafo, you were his coach. You tell me.
okay, so I actually had a couple of conversations, right? Do you remember? Were you there that night when we went to the Mexican restaurant after LACS? Like
Yeah,
between, if you remember how Mango and I were just sitting on our own at the bar.
yeah. What were you guys talking about?
Yeah, I think we were largely talking about motivation and right, like because there's like grit, right? Like, there's the grit in sports to grab a rebound, right, or to go for like an extra 2 yards on a run, right?
I remember we were gossiping because we had like our group. We were like we were speculating what you guys were talking about, and I was like, guys, he's just telling something to Mango about his taxes, and they're like, no. But you were talking about grit.
Yeah, we were talking about grit and like where does like that inner like kind of that inner strength come in, like because like when Mango does well, right? Like it's not like everything is clicking, right? He's making Armada work for a stock. He's adding 30% before he dies, right? Like he's not giving free openings, right? He's making like Armada work. Like when we watch Peak Mango, he's making every little bit matter. And that requires, discipline. It requires you to go like, okay, like he's just being lame, but you know what? I'm gonna do this because I know this is what it takes to win. And for him, when he says he plays Hungrybox, like none of that comes. The moment Hungrybox starts air camming, he's like, you know what? I've had my fun. I don't have to deal with this, and I can just leave, right? And there's no fortitude for him to go like, yeah, I'm gonna win the set. I'm gonna make Hungrybox work for it. I'm not gonna give him any freebies. There's nothing in his mind right now that makes him feel that way when he plays Fox or Falco against Hungrybox.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to add to that, he's the big inner conflict for him is that he recognizes he has a lot of talent, and why he still competes is like he doesn't want to waste years knowing that he's still a top 5 player, but at the same time he's disappointed that he can't find the motivation, so he feels like he's like the gifted and talented kid that's getting C's in high school and he doesn't know what to do with it. That's like kind of the large issue, and so he's trying to find fun. He's playing a Doc Lee. I told him just straight up like, look, the moment the set gets close, Hungrybox is going to air comp you. We saw this against Shroomed when Shroomed used to play Doc. Shroom realized he couldn't do anything. Like, what are you gonna do when he air camps you? Like it's the same exact thing, and but he's completely convinced. He's like three pills, two aerials, and a grab will kill Hungrybox. Like so, he is just a very optimistic person that he believes that he can win a set with Doc. Like there's no convincing him that he can't. In fact, if I told him he can't do it, he's even more motivated. So that's like his thing,
Gotcha.
and it's
I
only
mean,
against Hungrybox.
I've hung out with him a good amount, even on commentary. When me and him were doing Smash Factor commentary, I actually said it on commentary. I was like, "Dude, I can't believe he broke you," and he was like, "I get broken. I get broken all the time." And I was like, "I guess so," uh, because the truth of the matter is that Hbox, like Bane in the third Batman movie, in Dark, he broke his back, and he's Mango's in the dungeon, and Christian Bale's got to walk out, find the light of day, and make his triumphant comeback, because um, there's something going on here for sure. Now, I think there's like this is speculation on my part, but usually when Mango's in, this is not the first time Mango's had periods where he sandbagged. If you've been around the scene, this is not like a beginning to this. But usually, like he has like a big win that like motivates him again, or like it helps him believe in himself, or something like that. But what's been happening lately is when he plays well, like let's say a tipped off, um, he gets second because Zayn exists. Right? Like I said, this is the first time that I can remember in his career where he plays his best and he still loses. Right?
Yeah,
And that is a different era for him. Where for him, he could literally like be on his stuff, put all his energy in, try his hardest, and he's not gonna win. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
That's new. That's not a different. That's different. That is so different than it used to be. Even when Armada was around, when Mango had all his juice and had use it all, and like went into Mango Neo mode, he won. That was his thing, and it gave him a lot of confidence because it made him feel like I'm better than these guys, and I just need to come in and perform. They're not on my level. That's not true anymore. It's simply not true anymore. So it's gonna take a little like it's like watching like an NBA superstar at the tail end of their career dealing with the fact that their body's breaking down and that the young kids are faster, right? And you're like, dude, you're gonna in order to keep up, you're gonna have to work harder, right, than you ever have before. And I don't know if he's ready for that yet,
yeah,
right? Like he's gonna have to be like LeBron now, where like it's every consecutive season he's gonna have to work a little bit harder to stay relevant. It's not he can't just be like he was in his 20s. He's gonna have to work even harder than he did back then.
yeah.
And I just don't know why he would. The motivation he's already called the GOAT. And the guys who's winning right now are so far away. Like the Codys and the Zanes are so far away from that title. HBox is not really adding to his legacy recently. Um, he also is someone who cares a lot about the health of the game, in terms of feeling the prestige and the stage and feeling like what his place is in the game. And as you guys know, the scene's been in turmoil for a little while. So he feels obligated to stay and play, but also because it's a really bad time to leave, frankly. That we can't really take another gut punch. But also, there isn't that much to play for, right? At the moment, like Zayn's gonna get number one, no matter if Mango goes on a streak. And Mango's the type of guy where he cares about winning the events and getting number one more than he cares about getting a dinky fifth or seventh or something like that,
Yeah.
like or getting second at some tournament. And so it's like he has a really high standard for himself, probably too high considering what's happening. And this is a bit from speculation, a bit of conversation I've had with him and stuff like that. But nonetheless, I don't really super blame him. I just wish um, his doc would start taking sets so that it'd be more entertaining.
Yeah. I mean, I
That's
think
really all I can say.
actually, I think the hardest thing, and this goes back to like the year I coached him, was him getting second, third was like actually the worst thing for me because he'd be like, "Oh, it was like good enough, and if I worked a little harder, like I could have done it." Right? Like he
Yeah.
needs to get. It's not like a let's sandbag and play like Doc and Marth for like 97th like Genesis. Like he needs to get his ass beat. like and get like 13th.
Yeah.
Like for him to be like, okay, like I need to put in more work. But if he gets like 5th without really trying or playing his C game, it's like, oh wow. In his mind, he's like, everyone's still pretty bad, and like he gets complacent. And that was the hardest thing for me when I was his coach to motivate him. Because even though he was losing to Chudat and like Flep and X, they were all like top 8 level losses. He just it wasn't enough to motivate him to go like, yeah, like I really need to level up something.
Yeah, a quote unquote bad loss will bother him, and a close almost win will bother him the most, right?
Yeah.
Like getting second will bother him. And I think again, this is what I'm kind of saying is that right now, if he does go all out, and he does put all that energy in, his best case scenario is often second, right?
Yeah.
Second or third, and that's him setting himself up for being sad. He's actually probably happier at fifth than second. And so, like, just think about the psychology there. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Um, and so, he can speak for himself, but I sympathize. I don't think people out there understand what it's like to be on year 15, year 20. Like, I know my relationship with the game has changed over all that time, and I'm not even like a competitor, right? But like the more you're in the scene, the more you get it ingrained in your life, and the more it becomes a part of your mental stack and your cycle. It changes, man. It changes you. It changes the whole dynamic you have in relationship you have with the game. So I have a lot of sympathy for
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah, I think anything he does like to like motivate himself for accomplishments is like vanity at this point because like they incrementally don't add much, and I think Mango also knows that or like feels that.
Right. I mean, winning tournaments add a little bit, but again, HBox is not really. And maybe if HBox was doing better,
Yeah.
um, I think that might help. Like if HBox was like he almost won a SmashCon, that would have actually genuinely helped his legacy, right?
Yeah.
Um, he didn't almost win a SmashCon. Who am I kidding? He got second at a Smash. You see what I'm saying?
You know what's actually
Zayn's existence is actually messing this whole thing up because HBox can't win right now because Zayn and Cody exist. Like it's pretty much impossible for him.
yeah.
Uh,
You know what's
and
you know what's really
because that
funny?
happens, there's no reason for Mango to try.
You know what's really funny in all this? So there's a stat prior to the SmashCon that the only people who have ever finished second at SmashCon are Hungrybox and Mutake.
That's a crazy stat.
And I didn't know how that was gonna happen again this year, but it somehow did.
That's wild.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that? I was like, ooh, like I don't think that's gonna happen this year, and it somehow happened. Clutchbox getting second.
Mm-hmm. So true.
I mean, so okay, like, what are your? I mean, it's we've heard some of your takes, right? For you think Zayn's gonna be number one, right? Like, do you have any other kind of like? I like to say 90-50-10s, like for like the rest, like the second half of the year. Like, I think your 90 is Zayn's gonna be number one, right? Like that's your 90%.
Yeah, Zayn's gonna be number one. 90. I put that at 90%.
Okay.
Because I mean, there's not even that many events left. Actually, surprisingly, I know we're middle of August, but like November, December don't have very much
Yeah.
this year, which is very funny considering last year. There's like Riptide, there's Big House, there's the off season, which I don't know what the rule set is yet. I didn't look into it, and I think there's Shine. And I have to think about more. I'm sure there's more. But those are some of the big ones. That's not that many events, and I think Zayn's gonna win like at least two of them, probably, maybe more. So he's probably gonna get number one.
Okay, so that's your 90.
That's my 90. What are the percentages again?
90%, 50%, 10%.
50%. Moki's gonna hold on to his top 5 spot. I think.
Is that, I feel like you don't believe that's a coin flip.
I actually think he's probably gonna keep it. Yeah,
That's like
70%.
that's like a 80% for you. That's not a 50-50.
Okay, you're right. Okay, 50%.
Okay, so here's my 50% take.
What's up?
Mango gets into the top 5.
That's crazy.
If Mango
I think
wins,
it might
like,
happen. It might happen. I mean, like, it's very controversial that they ranked him as high as he did to begin with. Right?
Yeah.
For the summer ranking.
I would have
like
put
that
him
was
eighth.
kind of wild.
I put him 8th.
Yeah,
I
think it
didn't
was
I
kinda
didn't vote.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I think are they just not counting his sandbagging? Is that the deal? Is that how this game works?
I think everyone had different opinions on it.
I mean, he did sandbag, but like, I don't understand. Like, do we just not count? Like, what are we doing here? Can I just like, if I'm losing a set, can I just go Dr. Mario on game 3 and be like, that set doesn't count? Like, I don't understand. Uh, Sometimes we get so deep in the sauce of match fixing and collusion that we like lose ourselves in terms of like what we're doing. But fine. And I say this as Mango's deep friend. Come on, like you have to count results for results. Like that's the bottom line. If you want him to stop sandbagging, you have to count the results. Like if that's, and I mean, I'm a guy who always says the reason we make these systems, whether it's tournament systems, league systems, rule sets, or rankings, they're primarily designed to grow the community. They're not primarily designed to be accurate. I don't care if you think he's more skillful than the people below him. I care about if his results and indicate that, and I care that you make a system where it helps grow the game the most. Anyway, not trying to criticize the ranking people, but what I what I'd say is him being top 5. I could see it. I think that's a good 50 though.
Because usually second
Because
of the year, he usually like especially in the fall, he usually ramps up.
um
He's a procrastinator. He like fills in his essay at the last minute.
yeah, but the difference is I think this time he doesn't care about getting 5th. I don't think he cares if he gets 5th or 8th. It doesn't even add to his legacy if he gets 5th or 8th. Like it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, but
What does it change?
I think what it does matter for him is like there's no tournaments for like 2 to 3 months usually. Like Genesis, right? It's like usually like November, December. There's like some sort of Ludwig event, which I hope happens again this year. And then you have Genesis like a month and a half later, and then you have nothing for like so like there's like a pretty desert period, and I think it's for him. It's like well, like let me try hard for this period, and then I can play Counter Strike or watch football for like the winter, right? And I think that's what usually he latches on to.
Yeah, he's like, hey, let me give it a couple months of effort.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I think like he wouldn't have got it like a ranking like 8th, for example, would have been his lowest like since like '07 or some shit.
And he
Like he
finished like
hasn't
10th, like recently.
when was the last time he was that low? I have to remember the SSBM rank. Sorry if I said that off the top of my head. I maybe I'm forgetting a down period. Um,
Wasn't it like
11th last summer. That's summer. I'm talking about a year ranking. Like
Okay.
summer rankings, no one, you
But
know.
doesn't that further like he went from 11th to third last year?
Right. That's not. I'm talking about a final year ranking. Right. We don't, in historical levels, we don't like remember summer rankings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think that further kind of shows that there is some decent chance that because he went from 11th in the summer to third at the end of the year last year.
That he's possible of boosting it up. Sure.
Yeah.
But I think part of that was last year was weird in the sense that last year was
Can you say
we had
weird
no
again?
events. Weird.
Okay, got it.
Okay. In that he had a legitimate shot of becoming number 1, even with that bad start. And he has no shot of becoming number 1 this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
literally. There's not like an insane number of events in the second half where he can catch up. He simply cannot catch up. Um, and I mean, I guess if he wins everything, he'd make a case, but I don't think it's not realistic like it was last year. Um, and so I don't know. I think it's a slightly different scenario. I can see what you're saying. I do think a 50-50 on it's smart. Um, I think he wouldn't, even though he mostly cares about number 1. I think being outside of like top 5 is still a bad look for him,
Yeah.
and so he might care enough to be like, ugh, I don't want. Sure, Zayn, Cody, whatever, these nerds are better than me, but I can't let Leffen, who's playing another game, be ranked higher than me. Like, come on. And so that might make him try a little harder.
Yeah. And I can agree with that. Okay, so that's I mean, are you aligned on that 50-50 take or is it like do you have another 50-50 take that you're thinking?
Let me see.
I mean, it doesn't have to be rankings related, right? It could be like Moki wins instead, right? I think my 10% was Moki wins because Zayn exists.
A 50-50 take I have is that um, I think we will see Plup and Wizzy. Like this might be their like they might do only one more tournament this year. I think they're basically. I think there's a 50% chance they do more than one tournament for the remainder of the year, and there's a 50% chance they do one tournament for the remainder of the year. I don't think they'll do zero. I think it'd be crazy if they do zero.
Somebody said that they're signed up for Riptide. I think for what it's worth, I'm not sure if you are aware, but it was shared on GG Melee, so I don't. It's like out there. I think Wizzy's actually dealing with health problems.
With health issues, I'm
Yeah.
aware. I'm aware.
Okay,
aware.
got it,
I'm just. I'm saying, given that fact, how many do I think he's going to play?
Okay, fair.
You know.
Yeah.
And I think. I mean, okay. So if they're both signing for Riptide, I can see them going to Big House, and maybe it'll end up being two for both of them, right? Like they could both go to Riptide and Big House. I don't think they'd miss Big House, would they?
Yeah.
Maybe they would.
I think Wizzy brings an interesting element to like. I think he shakes up the top 8. I mean, we already say Plup does, but like Plup is like ranked 9th. I think Wizzy is going to surprise a lot of people just because like there hasn't been a Falcon that has really been prevalent, and also I think if you're a Fox and you play against Wizzy, it's still scary. Like the fact that he can touch a death you, like, and the fact that you're probably not used to him anymore. Like I think he will surprise people. Like he beat Jmook recently, right? Like, and we thought Jmook was unstoppable in that matchup with the way like he like force stocked none.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, what's your 10?
My 10 was Moki wins a tournament, like a decent sized tournament.
I don't think there's a 10% chance for that.
I mean, there's a I mean,
well, okay, what's decent side? Do you mean like one with Zayn in attendance?
Yeah.
Or
I mean, but like you're giving him like
I don't think
you're giving him like 6 chances to do it.
I don't think there's a 10% chance. If they're all with everyone in attendance, I don't think there is. But I think one that's slightly smaller, like a Smash Factor level, he would win those.
Yeah. It's I always bring up this statistic. SFAT versus there's a winners semis. The winners top 8 was SFAT versus Zayn on one side of the bracket, and Mango and Hungrybox on the other. And at this point, I think SFAT like was like 1-8 against Hungrybox, like atrociously lopsided against Mango, and like near impossible against Zayn. And even the fact that he made winners semis, I calculated he had like a 0.1% chance of winning. Is that
just
crazy?
Because just because he's a winner semis?
Like he already made winner semis. He's in winner semis, and he has a 0.1% chance of winning. Or like 0.2.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean, right? That's kind of what I mean. Is like if it can look good in terms of the results, because you get a high placing, but you're still really far away from winning the tournament. You know.
So you know what's like really funny, and I think this is where you and I can make a business off of Smashers. These parlay style bets, I think, are very unintuitive for Smashers.
They suck at them, yes.
Like if you were to tell me, like, let's say like Zayn's in the tournament, right? And I'm like, and like Moki makes winner semis, right? And you just say like, hey, like, I'll give you 3-1 that Moki will not win the tournament, or 4-1, right? Like they'll be like, oh yeah, I'll take that, right? And that's just like free money you're printing. No offense to Moki.
I mean, I don't want to go on a tangent here, but I've told you many times that one of the few avenues that I know of that would give us legitimate funding that we have not actually explored is gambling. Like it would work. You have a group of people with an audience in a sporting atmosphere. If we and what's cool about the gambling one is you don't actually need to sponsor the events in a public fashion. You just need to have it on a third-party website.
Yeah, I think my
funnel the money to the events.
I think my one worry is that the prize pool is going to be smaller than the amount of money bet.
Right.
That always
the main reason I'm always been hesitant is that we would have so much collusion.
Oh yeah.
And we would have so many problems that like you'd have to find a way to funnel the gambling money in a way such that the prize pools are high enough to basically to make it so that gambling on your own games isn't actually optimal.
Yeah, like even like
Um,
League of Legends gambling, right? Like for the LCS, like is a thing, and they
mhm,
even do like parlays, right? Like, what
yeah,
is stopping a homie being like, "Yo, like, what were your scrim results this week?" Oh yeah, we went
yeah.
0-20. Okay, great. Like, there's, I imagine that like even League of Legends probably has a lot of insider trading.
Yep, yep. But having said that, if there is a smart and competent way of funneling that money in back doors, and not actually promoting it on the stream, um, because obvious Nintendo issues, it would actually fund our scene because it's one few ways that I know of that
Okay,
would bring large amounts of money into the game.
just to illuminate, like, what does that mean? Because I think everyone has their own definitions, right? And there's different tiers of funding, right? Funding one would be just like, oh, like you run one Luddic event, and kudos to Luck. I'm not like trying to like downplay what he does. Like, funding could be like, oh, you funded one tournament, it has like a 10K prize pot, and you provide staff, so that's like 50K, right? Like, what does that like
Mm.
funding look like, just to paint a picture?
I mean, I think we'd finally have people who are paid. I've done like at this point probably over 10,000 hours, maybe more, tens of thousands of hours of unpaid labor. So it's a lot of people in Smash. And I think that would be nice. I mean, are you saying in terms of amount of money? I
Like,
don't
what is
know. I
that?
mean,
What does like funding look like? Like, just like to
I
give
think
an
it
image to.
depends. So the main thing is that I think most people when they hear logic like this, they assume it'd be the smashers who are gambling, and it wouldn't be because usually you get this stuff picked up in gambling circles and become professional gamblers who'd come in and it'd be their money who would be funding us, right? Which is what happens in regular esports betting. Like it's not Dota players who are betting on Dota tournaments. It's dudes in discords who are just addicted to gambling who are betting on Dota tournaments. And then that money ends up finding its way into the Dota event organizers' hands and commentators' hands and the events' hands, blah 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 blah. It all trickles down.
Has StarCraft ever recovered from like their like kind of scandals? Like,
I mean, it was really bad for them, but I also like if you just okay, go on if you want to go on Liquipedia for any Dota or Counter Strike event, and look at the number one sponsors. It's gambling every time, right? Um, and those events, by the way, are the one like if you're talking about like the esports with like the next least amount of publisher support, it's the Valve run ones, and they're the ones with the most like independent operators, right? They're like run by actual third party organizations, and they're largely funded by gambling. Sometimes the Saudis also. Like, there's ways of doing it, but like we just kind of keep our collars popped, and we don't ever like take any of that dirty money, which is fine, I guess. But if you ever want to know one of the actual avenues, gambling would do it. It would really
yeah. I mean, Street Fighter
help
recently
or
did
hurt
an
in some
event.
ways.
Street Fighter
Yeah,
recently
yeah,
did an event in, what was it, Gamer 8 or whatever?
yeah. Do you think Nintendo can shut you down? And when the Crown Prince is there, I don't think they can shut you down. They're not gonna mess with the freaking Crown Prince. I don't think so.
It's such a wild world we live in, where like
BJ's Cool says Nintendo could come in and shut down any gambling related stuff too. No, they can't. If you just have a random website that is a gambling website,
it might actually
um,
be outside the jurisdiction that
they
Nintendo would
can't
want.
shut. How could they shut that down? It's literally just a website with parlays. They can't shut that down. And you wouldn't be even promoting that website on the live stream. It would just be open knowledge that this is a place to go, and the tournament results get fed through Smash GG API.
Okay, so how
And
does
that's
how did
like that's all I'm talking about.
so like tournaments are complying with software modes like UCF and stuff, right? Or like, how does gambling get away with it and not UCF?
What do you mean? I don't
Like,
understand the question.
I think a lot of tournaments they just opt to just run like like non-frozen stadium and stuff like that, right?
Okay.
Technically, can't we just like get away with that too?
Can we run non-frozen stadium? Well, we're scared to because we're worried Nintendo can DMCA our stream. A gambling website doesn't have a live stream that can be DMCA'd. Period.
But like, what if they knew like there was like a backhanded business?
That goes to the TOs.
Yeah.
How would they prove it? How? Legit.
If
They
they
don't know. They don't know our venue contracts. They don't know any of the money that, especially since we wouldn't have the logos on the stream. There's literally it'd be as incognito can get,
Yeah, but what if they're
right?
suspicious and they just said no, you can't run your event. We don't know.
And
We're not allowing you.
allowing you to run the tournament to
Like
begin
they have
with.
suspicions and they just call you out and just go like,
Well, whatever. Then they can shut down the whole scene. They can do that with everything, right? They can do that already. But it would not be hard to do this incognito, right? It would just the TOs can easily put up their hands and be like, hey, there's a gambling website. We didn't make it. It's just out there, and it's just using our tournament results. Like that's not on us. Super easy. And then the gambling website could just give the money to the TOs, and we're done here, right? And then we make a shit ton of money. Like
and,
it's that simple, actually. Is
and we
what I'm
get
describing.
blackjack and hookers.
And we get blackjack and hookers, and we get kick deals probably as a result, which would also give us money. So yeah, I mean, I just bring it up because people always ask like, how do we get out of these holes? I'm like, there are a couple good ideas. It's just we've always had too many moralistic concerns for those ideas.
Here's what we do. We create an infrastructure where we just become reply guys to each other, and we generate enough Twitter Blue revenue to like send to a TO.
Dude, Twitter Blue is not gonna make you that much money, Tafo.
It
You
actually
need to get
isn't.
off the crack, bro. what is happening here? You're just such a hustler. I love the hustler side of Tafo Kids.
You're a hustler too. Like I've never seen a person hustle as hard as you for top eight side betting. Yeah.
I love side betting. That is true. I drew. It's true. So people are saying like, oh, if Melee gets relayed with gambling, Nintendo will be more strict with tournaments. I don't even know how they could be more strict than they already are. Um, but I think that like all of sports and all of sporting is related to gambling, right? There's like no all the other esports are doing this already is the crazy part, right? We're just not, and so we're just not making money. But so it's like kind of like we're just missing out, which is just kind of insane. Because it's again not mostly going to be our money. It's going to be the gamblers who are gambling already on in casinos and in horses and all this other stuff, and they'd be coming in just for a good deal because they
Yeah.
feel like this is an untapped market,
I
right?
mean, I think the
Those
hard,
guys,
but
those guys are always looking for a new place because the algorithms go and eat up everywhere they go, right? They all of a sudden the horse betting is no fun because there's an algorithm that's just destroying them. All of a sudden sports NFL and NBA are no fun because there's some AI that's destroying everybody and no one can compete.
okay, Blur.
So
Here's what
finding a new avenue is always what they want.
okay, here's what we do. We partner with an offshore gambling website. We set the betting lines, and we'll get this VC funded for like tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And in order to promote it, like people can gamble, get match bonuses. And on the
Hmm.
commentator's curse every week, we will tell you what to straight up bet on, and we'll set the betting line to like
Genius.
Zayn and like Hungry Bucks to be 50-50 because Hungry Box
Yeah.
is an old school god and Zayn is like a new unproven talent, and we can say it's like a
Yeah.
50-50, and then we tell everyone to bet on it, and then everyone makes money in the scene, and then we all get rich.
Yeah. Yeta64 says gambling. If gambling became a major sponsor, I don't see Nintendo being compliant. Once again, I'm not saying gambling becomes a sponsor of the events. I'm saying there just exists a website that has Smash gambling, where people can gamble on Smash. I'm not saying the events even promote that website. I'm just saying there exists a website. That's
Okay,
all that has to happen.
so like what is the incentive for that website to give money to a tournament?
Because they want those tournaments to have more viewership so that more people gamble. It's that simple.
Okay, got it.
That's it.
um all right, let's create the gambling website. I wonder what blockchain we can put it on so that people deposit crypto.
I mean, it would work. Again, I never like proposing this stuff to the community because everyone gets all up in their britches and they don't like doing things that I don't know make money. And I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like there isn't any questionable moral outrage around gambling. Don't get me wrong. Um, so I'm just like it's more trouble than it's worth for someone like me. But I do think that if we didn't clutch our pearls so much, there are some answers, and the other games do it.
Yeah. um there was one thing I actually like thought of, and I think it gives hope to the old guys. This is kind of tangenting, and I totally forgot to bring up when we talked SmashCon. Isaiah won a tournament.
Oh, isn't that funny?
I thought like
He's still the GOAT. Is he still the GOAT of that game? Do they still call him the GOAT?
so
I think so, right?
I think when we look at it, somebody actually did this, right? And I think it was Melody who looked into this, and she said that Isaiah is the goat of that game.
Still.
So the all-time rank according to her is number one Isaiah, number two Wario, three and four are Boom and Josuke,
Mm.
and then five and six is Alvin and KYSK. And then 7 through 10 is like Gerson, Karaba, Fukaru, Wizrobe, Wangera. Like there's like
Wow, you had a way more detailed answer to this than I thought you were prepared for.
I just like so happened to like see that in one of the discords.
Okay.
Yeah, so Isaiah is the goat, and I think the rationale was that he had such a strong era prior to this, and and then he had a resurgence, right? And so like I think the years of dominance, kind of in the early days, is like much larger than like Ken's dominance in like Melee.
Yeah, that's true. Plus, he's still winning now and doing. He's always done well. Like he's always gotten top fours.
Yeah, like a
In
Genesis
modern
and yeah. So I think it's pretty straightforward. But that's I think that was impressive. I was shocked because I think he lost the guy he played in grand finals and winners, and then he like just 6-0'd him. Um,
It's kind of wild. That guy's good at Super Smash Brothers.
so offhand, I know you talked about this earlier. What tournament are you going to?
I'm gonna go to Riptide. I'm gonna go to Big House. That's my year.
Okay, the Riptide's did they fix this one issue? So I assume okay, it's in the Kalahari Resort. Ugh, the one thing I hate about that tournament is that it's like to go from the airport to that venue. It's like that venue is like literally like an hour and a half from the airport. But I heard they have shuttles now. Is that true?
They have shuttles. Yeah, it's not that big a deal. You would just show up. They have a shuttle. They have a booth in the airport, which you just put your name on it and you go on a shuttle. And it's really easy. It's actually a fun shuttle because it's all smashers, and you all just hang out and you're there. It's not that big a deal.
Got it. Because I remember last time because it was like Ubers were like not fully a thing. The last time I went to what was it when it was still Smash and Splash, we crowded like 6 or 7 people in a sedan to get back to the airport. Not fun.
Yeah. Smash and Splash was worse because number one, it was farther. So this Riptides is not as far.
Yeah.
And because Riptide's in Ohio and Smash and Splash was in a whole different state.
Yeah.
And also the whole shuttle system is really figured out now. It's
Okay.
I thought that was the reason why I never went to Smash and Splash. I literally looked at a map and I was like, no, thank you. And then having now gone to Riptide, it's just not that big a deal. It's actually kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I just realized I have a wedding that weekend, so that's a no go for me. And you're not going to
Wait. I have a wedding that weekend? Is that the wedding I'm thinking about?
It's like September 8th to 10th. I don't think it's connected. It's not a gamer related wedding.
Okay. I gotta remember my weddings. Too many weddings. Too many.
But you're not going to Big House?
I am going to Big House.
Okay. I did apply for commentary, and that will
For which one?
for Big House.
Oh.
So if I don't get if Rob, you somehow listen to this, if I don't get a slot, I'm not coming. You can give me the 8 a.m. Like round one pulls, and that'll be.
Can we talk about a different subject that I was thinking about reading, perusing the Reddits.
What was that?
So people are on Jorge's case again, right? And you know, I just did Smash Factor commentary, whatever. Everyone liked that one. That was fun. But you know, not to say draw comparisons, but I mostly mean that by in general, if you're paying attention this year, there's been a lot of local level commentary at our major events, right? I'm not saying Jorge's a local level commentator. I kind of am mostly speaking on commentary in general. Jorge seems like a great guy. I have not analyzed the commentary enough or even listened to it enough to know if I liked or disliked it. I really am not really commenting on that. I'm more speaking about people expecting a level of commentary like we had in maybe different eras of the game. Where we had Brandon Phil, Scar and Toph. I was around, Vish was around. Shouts to my boy Chillin. Um, and yes, even DJ Nintendo and D1 were around. And that was like a lot of our main commentators, right? And we basically had a quote unquote top commentator on the screen even in pools, in every tournament, even smaller tournaments, right? Um, you pretty much couldn't find a commentary block without like a top commentator on for a large event. Like it just wasn't how we ran our tournament schedules, right? Um, you know, the guys like Fendi and Webbs, like we had like tons of people who were actively commentating, and the list is long. Lovage was commentating at that time, who people really like and have strong affinity to, and people might have noticed that those guys are not commentating as much anymore, and in fact, it's pretty much just Brandon, and I sometimes make a cameo occasionally, like I did with Smash Factor, and I've done a handful of top eights this year. Last end of last year, I was really active because I was getting really excited about Melee,
Yeah.
um, because the race for number one was getting really excited. I actually looked at it and I was like, the last 6 months of last year, I did more top eights than anyone, and it was actually one of the more active times of my like 20 years of commentating or whatever the fuck, or not 20, like 15 years of commentating or whatever. And so I got really into it again, and then all that stuff happened, and it kind of took me out of it. But I still show up every once in a while. Bobby's going to pretty much Big House and Genesis only. Tofa's less around, et cetera, et cetera. And I think overall the events are choosing people who are local to them. If I didn't randomly go to Smash Factor, it would have been mostly Mexican commentary at that final. Um, and I think you know, so I did Wave Dash with my boy Baba Ganoush and with Hugs. But technically that's SoCal commentary, right? There was what other majors are we thinking about? A lot of if you just go through each, not just the top 8 blocks, but like top 16 and top 64 blocks are people who haven't had that much experience with commentary, right? Not to say that we can't foster new talent, but if you're new at commentary, you're going to be worse. You're just not going to be as good as someone who's done it for a very long time. And especially people who have established brands that people generally like,
Yeah.
right? Um, and you know, a lot of that is because the TOs they've been tighter on their budgets and they're not paying people like they used to, because they can't. Not really their fault. Um, and a lot of it is also that I think that there's been a lowered priority on live stream viewership compared to the heydays of when there was, for example, people working at Twitch who were really pushing for them to make sure their schedules and commentary and every block was really top notch. Like I had numbers I wanted to hit, and I wanted to make sure we hit them in terms of our viewership. So I wanted to make sure the broadcast quality was good, and you know, me and all the Twitch people as well as the TOs, frankly, put more emphasis onto the broadcast. And I think most of us can recognize that the broadcast quality has literally gotten worse with time. Like it's actually the product in terms of broadcast quality has gone worse with time. That's like pretty much inarguable. I think BTS made it better for a while. Now that's gone. The LED events are good, but for the most part, broadcast quality's gone worse, and it makes sense, right? It should. If there's less money in the scene, it should get worse. But in that, I'd like people to spend a little less time bashing the kind-hearted people doing unpaid labor for your entertainment, and more time, and spend that energy maybe in thinking about
Zayn's
if you
dominance
really
in the game.
no, if you think Phil is such a legend and you think Phil is such a goddamn legend, then you as redditors can pool together fucking $500 to get Phil out there. It's not that fucking complicated. The amount of money and compensation that's required for us to have good commentary and or the commentary that you guys want is very little. It's not very much relative to all the other costs that our game has. It's not that much, right? And I think there is a general sentiment among people who've been contributing to the community for a while that this is a quote from Phil actually, which is like he says, "If I'm such a legend, why don't I get paid like one?" And that isn't to say that we don't love doing this stuff and all that, but and I know everyone means it in a good heart and they mean well by it. But when you walk through a venue and everyone has googly eyes when and they want your autograph and they stare at you and all this stuff, and you're out there doing unpaid labor, you kind of wonder what the fuck's going on, right? After like you do it for a while, you're like, please stop praising me and start paying me. Is what is the general theme, and the amount that they're asking for tends to be pretty low. It's not something that we're incapable of, and it's something that we can make happen with a little bit more effort, frankly. I personally believe, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not just speaking for myself as a commentator. I'm literally saying for our general broadcast, I think it'd be good for the scene. It doesn't take that much to just have that. And again, this is not talking about Jorge in particular. I really want to make the case for that. It's just more so, not just the TOs, but the community at large. Like, literally anyone in this chat can fix this problem. Legitimately, anyone in this chat can fix this problem, right? Like, it would that can happen. And so the greater point is that yeah, it's been annoying, I think, for as a Melee fan to see that the broadcast quality has gotten worse. And I think it's always sucks to see it step backwards a bit. But I also think that you know I'd like for us to look at it in a more macro sense and less pick on a commentator here or there just because you know people don't seem to like that particular block that they did or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's we have a lot of talent who are willing to do it, but they just don't have a lot of incentive to do it because again they have to pay for their own flights and hotels themselves, right? Like people don't seem to understand that like this is not like with rare exception that's how it worked right now. And sometimes you get your flight paid, sometimes you get your hotel paid, sometimes you even get your block paid, right? But it's not consistent, and it's not like how it used to be in that heyday where you had that consistent lineup of commentators, and that's just kind of my point here.
Yeah. And I think like if we're gonna talk specific like about it, like I think it is a lot easier to go from overexcited about the game to like kind of tone it down a bit, as opposed to the opposite problem where like I'm a little bit too mellow and I have to like put in more effort to ramp up the energy. So like the things that Jorge can do to adjust like are so minor that like I think like it's very easy for him to, and he improves from last year too a lot. I think if the problem is he gets too excited, like I don't think that's that big, right? And the thing is like maybe he can pick a few less moments to like scream. That's like the main criticism I'm seeing. And if that is the main criticism, I don't think it's that.
I mean, sure. Again, I don't want to really go in on how he could be a better commentator 'cause I didn't really haven't watched enough of his commentary to like give a full critique. I will push back on the idea that there isn't a lot of like there isn't a vast difference between the most experienced and least less experienced commentators. Like I think there is like there's just frankly a talent difference between a Scar or a Homemade Waffles and someone who's relatively new to it, right? And it's not their fault. And again, I want to really emphasize, I'm not talking about Jorge. I'm just talking about in generalities about experienced people versus not, right? Usually, if you're inexperienced, it's more than just not yelling as much, right? You actually there's just a lot you have to
Yeah.
you need time to learn in terms of how to be a good commentator because it's a skill, right? Um, and so for sure, and I guess also a point I'm making here is like people in chat are saying things like, "Oh, where has Vish been?" In terms of his commentary, like questions like that. And the way you hear enough of those questions, and it's kind of like when people talk to me and be like, "Hey, Blur, when's the next Kings of Cali?" Like, when are you gonna start TOing again? And I have to like look at them dumbfounded, be like, bro, have you not figured out why I'm not TOing? Have you like are you like under a rock? Like, with all due respect, I know you're talking to me because you loved my tournaments and you wish they would come back. But are you really oblivious to the fact of why I wouldn't want to host them? Like, has every piece of content, especially in these commentary curses, really not sunk into you of why a human being might not want to TO? You know, like what might be stopping me here? And similarly, when Vish gets a ton of DMs and messages, be like, "Hey, bro, why aren't you commentating?" or whatever, or "Why aren't you out there again?" Uh, I'm sure part of him is like, "Have you guys not figured it out?" Did you guys like read all the stuff about the implosion of the scene and like think that I should therefore be around just as much? Like, obviously, the man's time is worth something, right? And I'm not saying he's not around because of money or something. Maybe I don't know. I haven't talked to Vish in a little bit, but I more mean to say like on a macro level scale when you're asking those questions, the answer should be obvious. The answer should be super obvious.
I
Those
think,
guys aren't around because they're not being paid to be around.
yeah, fully hear you. I think it's just it's kind of the blessing and the curse, right? And because I think we are very scrappy as a community, right? And I think when things go well, right, we assume underneath the hood everything's going well, and so I don't think people connect the dots to say, "Oh shoot, this tournament is 50K in the hole," or yeah, like I'm willing to bet if I put out a Twitter survey and say like, "Do you know that commentators aren't really getting paid like the big tier like when they go to events?" I think most people would be very surprised. Like
Yeah,
it's just ignorance, right?
yeah, which is kind of like uh it makes sense. Like they don't run events and stuff. But I also think the knowledge within the scene has gotten better and better. Like we kind of people are talking more intelligently thanks to the amount of transparency that we've had about like our problems with Nintendo, our problems in growth, and all that. I think in the last couple of years than I've ever seen, just because the content's gotten better and better in that regard. Um, so it's really all I'm saying is that, and I think it would help people come up with better communal systems for solutions, right? If those questions were a little bit, I don't think there's anything wrong with a question like that. It's just more like if people when they hear that question, they probably should answer, oh, because we're not paying our commentators right now, and I wish we would do something about that. And then maybe if that's the conversation, someone would do something about that, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I totally hear you. Um, I just think like so. For
Yeah.
example, like recently I gave this shout out to the homie Brandon, right? And it actually inspired him to start like streaming again, and he's starting to get stuff. And so I'm happy that he's saying, "Hey, look, like this is my financial situation. If we can get to 1,500 subs, like I can start running, pay my staff, and run Rona Rumble
Hmm.
again." And so I think we're starting to
Yeah.
see it, but like I think sadly for a lot of people in Smash, like they're so averse to asking for help or taking money from the scene
Yeah.
that it's only comes out in like the most extreme cases.
Sure, and I include myself in that case. I've never really asked for anything, but like that's what I'm talking about. Like, inarguably, our most active commentator this year is Brandon, right? He's probably commentated the most this year, and that guy has a full time job right now while traveling to all this stuff, and and that full time job is a manual labor job, right? And he's trying to stream at the same time. Like, all you have to really do to make it possible for him to commentate at like everything is to subscribe to him, right? And similarly, Toph is a content creator, right? He has a stream too. If people just subscribe to him, it'd be more. I'm sure he could make sub goals around that too, right? If his community made it more possible, made it clear to him that's what they wanted, right? Or any other commentator, like Scar sometimes streams, right? We have pretty much all of them are available, and ways of supporting them are available. Um, and like I kind of just mean more in a broad space,
Yeah,
like thinking about that and thinking about how much that would, because frankly, like our commentators, I know this is a controversial statement, but other than like they said, let's say the top 3 or 4 or 5 players, commentators in general are more important for the scene's growth than players are, right? Like they're on screen more, they're on broadcast more, um, their voices being heard. They're not just playing a couple sets and that are for the whole tournament, etc. Right? Um, and again, I think like the top 5, 6, 7 players maybe are more important. But for the rest of them, commentators are going to make a bigger impact in terms of like people's lasting impression of the community, right? Um, so having those guys be sustainable and having them like consistently being able to go to events is really important for our scene's health. And anything we can do to make that more possible is going to be insanely important for our scene's health. So I think like um, just for an open discussion about it. And I know Million earlier said you can't assume any given person, like the general fan, knows the exact reason just because it's obvious to me. Okay, first of all, I just told you, so now you know. But second of all, I don't know, man. Like, we had literally a multi-day, multi-month almost trending story about our community and what it's dealing with in terms of funding. I don't think it's asking too much to say that people should be able to infer that the people in the scene therefore need monetary support and that they're not doing so well. Cody Schwab isn't sponsored, right? Like, it's not hard to figure out that like the scene has major financial issues, and that goes down to every single major player in the scene, right? I don't think it's like very complicated, frankly. I think it's been really well advertised. I don't, but nonetheless, we're talking about it now, and I guess I mean to say like I don't think the bigger issue is any one person's commentary block. I think the bigger issue is we have a ton of commentary talent and they're not at the events, and I think that is a tragedy. Like, we have so many good commentators, so many people who are really good, and they're simply not at the events, and they would make the events better, right? Um, TOs, if you're out there and if you're ever thinking about flying out a player, it's literally more worth it to you most of the time to fly out a commentator. Like, unless that player is like Mango or Zayn, right? Like a top. But if you're thinking about flying out like someone who's ranked 10, 11, 12, and you don't have a freaking commentator for your event, hire a commentator. Come on. Like, it's not really that deep. It's obvious. But, obviously we don't have any infrastructure, as Noah's saying, to make stuff like that happen. But you don't often need infrastructure. You just need to, like, sub to their channels and, make avenues for their success. Like, it's not, we don't need anything grand to make that happen. Literally, if you DM a TO and say, hey, can I pay for homemade waffles to go to your event? They'll say yes. Like, again, this is not.
It's not rocket science.
We don't need to make a big grand project out of this. I'm just saying, all of us can figure out ways of making the scene a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I donated to homie Brandon not too long ago.
Yep.
And then hopefully that catalyzes Rona Rumble again. But yeah, I mean, I think those are a lot of good points. I think similar to like, there's a lot of things that I think the nice part, the blessing and the curse of the scene is, yes, we may not have large infrastructure, but that at the same time that does create space if you like that you can make a difference. And I think that's cool.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm trying to think of what else. I think that's like I'm like, I don't have that many topics. I don't think I have any like pressing topics. I don't know if there's any other kind of closing things that you want to talk about, Blur.
Not really. If you want, we could do a couple, a little questions, and then we could wrap.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, Chad, you got anything for us? Anything you want to ask? Anything recent? Cannibal's talking about how much money HBox brought to the scene because of Coinbox. Yeah,
it's huge.
I think he deserves a lot of credit. Straight up, Juan deserves a lot of credit. Say what you will, he's carrying. He carried for a long time, and it was actually really important for us.
I will say on this note, like, because the immediate thing that people go, I mean, and the chatter's definitely kind of calmed down a bit with like it being a crypto Coinbase. Like, there are a lot of things where like people love the game so much that they're willing to do like kind of deal with like public scrutiny and criticism and kind of harassment. So like it's not easy to like do that, right? Especially because that was a crypto sponsor, and I know initially people were just like dogging him like nonstop, and it was So like the other thing can be easier, right, is like understand that like we are not in a position to like say no to everything. We just aren't, right? It's either we take a sponsor and something happens or it doesn't happen. That's the choice we have in a lot. Yes.
Yeah, and I think I mean, so it always depends, right? Like on our lines, right? So it's like if you look at the controversial sponsors, right? There'd be drugs and alcohol. There'd be pornography. It'd be gambling. It'd be the U.S. military.
Probably
And
Saudis. I don't know.
right, right. Foreign actors. Foreign actors would be one of them. And crypto would be another one, right?
Yeah.
So like that's like some of the main categories. And right now, I think all those categories feel untouchable for a TO, right? And here's the thing: all those categories pay better than anyone else by a lot, right? Partly because regular media won't touch them, right? And so it's tough because we are the beggars and we are not the choosers. We are it sucks to turn away ideas and opportunities like that when we don't have much to work with as it is. Um, and so it's important to think like where's our line? Like which of those is actually um, okay with us, or are none of those? Would we rather not have any money forever, or are some of those more okay in terms of what we think? Um, for me, crypto is one of the most okay of that group, right? If I look at that group, I'm like, well, I don't really want Smash to become a recruiting arm because we have especially such a young audience, recruiting arm into like war, so that like people like a kid who's watching the stream could like go and like die.
Yeah.
That one seems pretty bad on a relative compared to the rest. Drugs and alcohol, I think it's just really hard because Nintendo. So that one's kind of a non-starter. Same with pornography. I think on a moral level, most people are more okay with those, but it doesn't matter because Nintendo's the least okay with those.
Shout outs to Weed Maps.
Um, Shouts to Weed Maps. Um, so of that group, crypto's has to be the best, I think, for most people, and I think gambling's probably the second best of that group, right? And that's maybe my personal opinion. Maybe everyone's moral compass is different. Maybe you have experience with a family member with a gambling addiction, or you know someone who had the rug pulled from them because of crypto, and so those are sore subjects for you. So maybe I'm being insensitive, but that's where I currently stand on it. And I'd love to hear what more people think on it. But I don't think it's wise for us to shut out everything, right? I don't think that's great.
Yeah.
And that's currently the status quo. That's currently the status quo of us.
Yeah, and I think it's fair. Like, just to add a little nuance here, you can have your complaints about crypto, right? Like, it's not saying that like we think crypto is this holy grail thing, and I think there's a balance, right? Because like Luminosity had some flack, and people are asking for sustainability, right? And if a rich billionaire wants to like fund us, even if it's not sustainable, like I'm fine with that, right? And people can have their qualms and complaints. I'm not saying to not complain, but just like understand like kind of like the beggars and choosers kind of dynamic we have right now. We actually have some questions now, though.
Well, go ahead.
Not good ones though. I mean, I don't even know how to answer the 2K and SSBM. Rough ranking of the years of Melee since the Doc era. I think that would probably be its own episode.
That's too long.
Okay. How can the community market the new top players the same way the Five Gods were marketed? Mango has expressed he thinks the Five Gods hype has a lot to do with that rather than the players themselves.
I think so too, because I think I heard this, by the way. So I was on a random show by a guy I really like, Electric Underground.
Okay.
And one thing he said was that he felt like the new era of players won't ever get the branding that like an HBox or Mango got because they existed during a particularly special time, and there's the Five Gods push, and that basically made them have some branding that others simply won't get. I push back on it because I just look at Street Fighter, and yes, as big as Daigo's name is and Justin Wong's name is, I see a future where the Sonic Foxes and the the punks or whatever in like 3, 4, 5 years time are going to be dealt with just as much respect, right? Um, and I think it takes time, but I think it can happen. I think a lot of those guys had to spend a little more time on their content for it to happen. Zayn in particular, because if there's one guy the Mango Torch can get past to, it would probably be Zayn. Um, but he doesn't stream enough and he doesn't make enough YouTube for for that to happen. Um, and Cody does stream a lot and does do that a lot, but I think he needs to work on his YouTube more, right? By comparison, he streams a lot of hours, but doesn't do a ton of YouTube. And Jamie does barely any of them. And so, like for the torch to get past, they kind of have to market themselves in so many ways. Um, and I think a huge part of it is like what I was saying before. The Five Gods narrative happened because of commentators, right? The narrative gets made by commentators, and I think the more worrying thing is not can these players set a narrative for themselves. It's more that can the can we have commentators consistently at events who will set the narrative for them, right? Because we will make them exciting. We will make people fall in love with the James Codys and Zanes by hook or by crook. We're capable of that. But they have to the actual top commentators have to be at events to make that happen.
Yeah.
The strength of Scar as a commentator was setting the narrative. Exactly, Cannibal Ball. Exactly. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Our boy Bobby Scar will do it. He is capable, trust me, of making you love all three of those guys.
And if you don't learn about those guys, you learn about anime. Both a win-win in my book.
Yes. Yes.
um, yeah, I mean, I think that's like really important, right? And I think the way I see it is like a good commentator is like a really good cook. Like anyone could make an Armada mango set look good. Like it's a good ingredient to work with, right? Like, I could make that set look good, right? Because it's Armada mango. I think the beauty is of a great commentator is they can extract more off an Armada mango set, and they can turn a bad set and make it theoretically like a bad set into a good one. So I think the storylines that come out there, I think they exist. I think it takes effort, and I think it takes a good person, a person with that kind of eye to draw it out.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Best versus Net 123 is one of the best examples, right? Where that set with it was me and Scar, but like if it was treated by very inexperienced commentators, that set would have been forgotten so fast.
It would have been it would have been memed, and they wouldn't have paid attention, right? They would have talked about like something else.
I don't think I think it would have literally had 10 views on YouTube, maybe, right? Like nothing, right? And that's kind of what I mean, where it's like, and yet now it's one of the most viewed sets, and it's one where people talk about for so long, right? And so it's that kind of power that we got to make sure stays in the scene.
Yeah, it has 100K almost. It's like a 92.
Yeah, it's got tons of views.
So I think there's definitely work to do, and I don't think you can force it. Like you just don't throw a name. It's like naming a kid, right? I'm struggling to figure out a name for my kid. I will figure it out. It takes thought and care, and I think.
Have you considered the name Aryan?
No.
It's a good name. That's my first name. Chad probably doesn't even know that. No one knows my first name in the community. But
absolutely not. Okay.
No. No. Okay. Well.
I think okay. Well, on that note, I think what is missing actually is this, and I think you bringing this up is good. So I think there's categories of content that exist, right? We have things that are like kind of like the rankings and stuff. I think most of our content, if I think of everything that happens, is very kind of current events, like short term, like what happened last weekend, and to an extent, that's kind of what this is. If I think of GG Melee, I think of like the streams, right? When I think about player streams and content, right? It's very topical to a fault that it kind of just looks at last weekend without the greater context to like the totality of everything that's like happening. And I think that's where a lot of the narratives are getting lost, and I don't think there's been a space for that. I think the MLG era when we in 2014, like I was able to create a pretty good theme, like a narrative that surrounded like the 2014 season.
You killed it. You did good. You did great, especially those Yahoo videos. They helped us out a lot. I think Walt's doing a decent job. I like some of the stuff he's putting out. Basically need more of that, but you're right. The totality content, like, you know, we also to give ourselves a little credit, Commentator's Curse was the biggest podcast on the block for like that entire like 5+ year period, right?
Yep.
And we put a little bit more effort into it than we do now, and we didn't put a lot of effort back then, but uh, we put even less now. And so I think that kind of stuff that helps. I think like long form content that people consume and are like the super fans can be a part of. I think is a huge part of it. Um, and like every little bit helps. But ultimately, like it just takes a while. Like no one's gonna become a mango overnight. Like in
Yep.
terms of branding, it's gonna take a while.
I also think, like, in addition to that, like, we need to create tidbits for the Melee fan base. And again, like, I think a circuit, unfortunately, like, does this easily. And again, I bring it to MLG, right? That creates a natural conversation among the community to go, like, oh, like, what's at stake? Who's going to win this, right? And I think where the conversation's missing is, like, we go into SmashCon, right? It's like, there's no kind of narrative of what's at stake. It's like, oh, if Zayn wins, right? And like I think there is greater conversation to be had, like maybe from me or from other content creators to kind of set that tone, so that it kind of sets a trajectory for like Twitter or Reddit to like kind of gear in towards these certain things or these certain stories.
It certainly doesn't help that I think like the average case for a ranking system like the one we have now is a year like this. I know last year was particularly exciting because we could have had a race for number one, and that was like kind of really hype.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at most Melee years, they're like this year, where like Zayn's gonna be number one. We kind of already know it, right? And I think maybe something different happens, and maybe it gets spicy near the end. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it is. And I think most people who are watching would bet their bottom dollar,
Yeah.
right? I had it as a 90% chance for crying out loud, right? And so I think like um, that is naturally part of it. And it's like if you don't have that, then what is the significance of a Smash Con versus a Shine, right? And with Shine coming up, and I think most people and viewers don't know that.
Yeah. And I think that's where like the conversation can be had. And again, there are pockets that are happening, right? But it needs to be more brought to the forefront. I think my larger worry, and I thought about this a few days ago, was if we don't have a tournament, like let's say there wasn't a tournament this weekend, upcoming weekend, or the weekend after, Melee is just not really being talked about on like Twitter. Like it just isn't getting talked about, and so like there needs to be something that kind of sets the tone that naturally leads to people to have
I mean, also I think maybe it's just me, but like we go through the same 3 or 4 topics on Twitter over and over again. It's pretty much controllers, rule sets.
commentators should
Um,
get paid.
maybe we do that,
Prize
and
pots.
then like Nintendo slash a circuit slash like that general conversation, um, and like things like that, like um, airtime limits. Yeah, there's rule sets, like stuff like that. Like basically those topics. I don't think like we can have discourse, but some discourse generally doesn't grow the game, right? Um, and though that discourse doesn't really grow the game, it's fine to have that discourse. Like by all means, we should talk about that stuff, I guess. Even if it's as boring as those topics are to me,
I
as
think
much
I
they,
think
as much they make them my brain melt. But I would like it if we had more productive content, which we actually did grow our game.
I think that to me feels like junk food sugar content.
Right. It's like the stuff that'll get high engagement, but it won't actually make someone love the game or like sticky to the game.
Yeah.
Like why would everyone complaining about controllers make someone want to play Melee? It wouldn't. Right? It would actually do the opposite.
I am convinced through my experiment, and like again, my first objective isn't to like make money off of Twitter, right? Like we've already established that. But like my pew pew, like the pew pew, I put up one simple tweet about the pew pew pivot moment, right? Pew pew commented on it, and he talked about like how he actually doesn't use C stick, right? And it actually is like
Mhm.
pretty interesting to see top players talking, and for like people who may not be familiar to kind of look at a piece of history from 8 years ago that wasn't well known. And I think like we could easily do that with Jmook and Zayn, right? Like I'm sure there's a sizable amount of people that didn't know that Jmook literally just came out of nowhere, right? Even though we know that. I'd rather have discussions like that on social media than controllers.
Yeah, I would rather. I mean, we can't really control it. I will also say that because of the way Twitter slash X is moving, I'm a little worried about us not having a home either, because Twitter was our home for a while. Um, so like that's a bit concerning. I don't know if Twitter slash X is actually going to go to nothing, or if that's all like a hullabaloo and everyone's still using it as much as ever. Um, but I do think like I don't know what we do if it is right, because we haven't really built up a strong Instagram or TikTok for our scene this entire time. We probably should have by now, because those are the two biggest social platforms. Um, and Facebook went where it did already, right? And we remember how Facebook's downfall and decline hurt us, right? When that happened.
Yeah.
So, you know, being more diverse in that regard in terms of our social platforms would help.
Yeah. And I think I'm starting to see how shorts connect. Like how I can produce content that's towards shorts. But like that doesn't create conversation, right? Like you're just consuming short thing. Like whereas
Yeah,
Facebook you're having more conversations. I guess you can argue that Discord's become that place, but like it's hard for outsiders to get in the funnel.
right. I mean, YouTube's always going to be the goat.
Yeah.
YouTube's just so much better than everything else in terms of like making good content that actually keeps people sticky. Um, but I do think the other stuff matters. And I think we're past due on our big personalities having TikToks and Instagrams. As much as I don't want one.
Mango has
I,
a Mango actually has a TikTok.
and he has an Instagram that he barely uses.
I
And
mean no
he
the
pays someone
TikTok
for his TikTok.
the TikTok is actually pretty good.
Decent, yeah. The TikTok's bigger now. I've heard, but overall, like I'd say 90+% of our top guys, if you just list them all out, don't have either,
Yeah.
right? Like we're pretty much Twitter only, um, and that's not good because it's like the smallest of the three by a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think Twitter's gonna stay because it kind of reminds me of like the Kick versus Twitch thing. Like, there's now Threads, there's Blue Sky, like there's all these other things that think that they're gonna like get all the angry, upset Twitter people or X. I refuse to call it X, but
Yeah,
but then like Threads like was like a 1 week fad, and now everybody's back. Like,
probably. I will say though that like I've at this point gotten to a point where I don't underestimate his poor decision making, and it does add up. It
it
never
does.
happens immediately. Like with Twitch, for example, right? They had such an enormous lead by all the good work done by, its early employees and during its heyday, that its lead was so massive that it would take a long take so much fumbling to lose that lead, but they seem to be capable of it, right? They seem to be making a ton of decisions that are headed down that path. It's just going to take a lot of decisions back to back and a lot of aggression from the competitors to actually make it fully happen. But I don't really put it past them.
I mean, I totally agree with you. I think the moat has kind of shrunk.
Yeah,
But to this day, we've been kind of like dreading the series of decisions of Amazon Twitch for like now 7 years,
yeah.
and we've seen people spend hundreds of millions of dollars to try to take Twitch, and we still haven't seen it. And Twitch continues to make head scratching decisions. Like,
I mean, especially since like the one that the Twitch's competitor that we talk about the most, which is Kick, is literally built on, you know,
yeah,
Amazon Twitch API. So every new user and viewer on Kick makes more money for Twitch than a viewer and user on Twitch. So the bigger Kick gets, the more money Twitch slash Amazon makes, uh, relative to like basically they would actually on a financial level, not on an actual business level, but on a financial level, prefer you on Kick than on Twitch. That's how ridiculous it is
yeah,
because they get the upcharge that they do on
the
they
servers.
do for the servers, and they also don't have to pay out any split, right, back to the creators. So it's just pure dollar bills, y'all,
And they're
right?
not getting hemorrhaged on like Amazon Prime or Twitch Prime and stuff too.
Exactly, right. So it's like it's just more money. Now, obviously, they would rather have a person be on Twitch than on Kick because they want to grow and their platform, and they'd rather have that than the money.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show like how ridiculous it is. It's like the competitor we talk about the most, not their number one competitor because YouTube is, but the competitor we talk about the most is one built on their back end. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of absurd.
Yeah. Um, it's so funny you bring that up. So, but like, yeah, I mean, if you were to tell me in 2026 that something takes over Twitter, I wouldn't be surprised, right? Um, I don't think there's anything immediate that really. I mean, if anything, I thought something from like Instagram or Blue Sky would bring a little bit of momentum, but it seems like there was like zero, like next to zero.
Um, it can happen really fast though. Like legitimately, um, because so Twitter's moat's really bad because it's a one to many platform. And this is something that Elon himself doesn't understand, which is it's actually mind blowing how little he understands the thing he bought. I can't imagine buying something for that much money and not understanding it to the level that he does. Um, so, for example, if in one weekend LeBron James says, "Yo, I'm I'm moving off Twitter. I'm done with this. I'm only gonna use Instagram or I'm only gonna use Threads or something like that. Deuces." And he puts a hashtag at the end that's like, I'm off X, right? And then Kim Kardashian does it, and then Justin Bieber does it. Yeah, no, bro. In one weekend, the site can just be gone. Legit. That's how because it's a one to many platform. It's not like an Instagram or a Facebook or whatever where yeah, the celebrity leaves, but there's still so many people who have accounts that they value that they're going to stick around. No, people only go on Twitter to follow large accounts and celebrities. So if those small handful of people decide to leave, it's over. You know what I mean?
I mean, that is a scenario that exists. I just don't
Like
see it.
legitimately, LeBron James could end Twitter tomorrow if he wanted to.
Right,
Like
but he's not incentivized to. You think
no, because he's trying to play basketball. But like, if at any point any of those people get pissed off, they could do it.
But the
like,
likelihood
people in the world.
the likelihood of that's like really low.
Is it? Elon's making a lot of enemies, and the platform's getting worse. I don't know. I think it's more possible than
Like Elon could literally say he's a Nazi supporter, and I'm sure.
No, I think they would all leave. They would all leave. That's what I mean, though. You see what I'm saying? You literally just put out a perfect example. If he says something like that, I think immediately all those top celebrities leave, and it's over.
I think there's something about the dopamine rush of Twitter that keeps people on it. I think it's literally an addiction.
It is an addiction.
Like, uh, like I'm worried that I live in an alternate universe where I got on TikTok, right? And like I don't actually consume TikTok content, but I know if I did, you can tell me that I'm selling like TikTok literally like China has all your data, right? Like they can do anything with it. There's there's I don't know hundreds of millions of people on that platform despite the fact that people know that their money their all their data is like getting taken by China and they're still on it. So like I just think there's something addictive at like a chemical level that will prevent people from leaving Twitter.
Can I tell you the blur futurist theory on
Okay.
how AI on AI on this that an idea I've never heard anyone say before.
Okay.
One possible consequence of AI is it actually does what the Elons and whatever of the world say they fear, which is that it blurs a line between a human user and an AI user so much that we can no longer tell and trust if something's a bot or a person to the level that it makes it so that these platforms are no longer interesting to the humans. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, what I'm saying is not just AI's impact might not just be in all those other ways. It could also be that it kills social media, like period. And it could also kill, by the way, dating apps. If AI gets to the point where it creates so many fake profiles and so many fake bios, and it can have conversations with you in the app. Will anyone use dating apps? Right? Because you'll be like, all my matches are freaking bots, like and they have full conversations with me, and I can't tell. Right? Similarly, every conversation I have with on Twitter, I'm actually talking to a robot, and I like it. What is even the point? Right? What is even the
Well,
point of using
so
this
what
thing
you're gonna
anymore?
do is it's gonna be like lawyers. Like I'm gonna have my lawyer talk to your lawyer, but replace the lawyer with the AI bot, and then they'll determine if you're a match with that person.
Uh, so you're saying, okay? I don't even know how to interact with that, but yeah, people are saying China's Tinder is like what you described. It's all bots, etc. But what I'm saying is, and it's funny because like a guy like Elon points it as like a terrible thing. Like, oh no, like the income of AI could like destroy social media, and I'm like, and like or dating apps or all these things. I'm like, wait a second, this sounds like a wonderful cleanse. Can we just make that happen? Like, this sounds good. Like, if all the human users leave and it's just bots arguing with each other and we're all just over it, like, it actually makes us all sick of it and we all just move on with our lives and we stop having this horrible addiction that's moving us into further and further loneliness and further apart from each other. Um, isn't that like a good thing?
I
Like,
think.
isn't
Well,
isn't it
okay.
actually just good for the world? Haven't we already determined as a society that it's better for the world if these sites don't exist? Like, I don't think the thing that they add, and they do add stuff. They do have general positive uses, and I've seen it. Um, I still don't think what they add is better than their negatives. Their negatives are far worse.
Um, I mean, I think the worry I have there, and again, this kind of goes into the level of like, we live in a capitalist society, is that we kind of ask ourselves fundamentally like, how are these computers operate, right? And generally, like most businesses and social media are geared towards engagement, so they make money. If we ever get to that point, I'm very pessimistic of the worldview that most likely everything will just drain our money somehow.
Pessimistic of the worldview that mostly say that again. I don't understand you.
Because when we look at like algorithms, right, they're geared to get you to spend money because we live in a capitalistic society.
Okay.
I feel like we even get past that point,
Mm,
like I think everything would be so viciously created to give us a dopamine rush to give money that we would all be
gotcha.
broke.
So basically, you're saying, and by the way, we're already having that. I mean, that's what gaming has become, right? Gaming is like become so extremely good at extracting money from its consumer, like, and so efficient and optimized at it that sometimes you wonder where the game is. You know, like where's the fun again? And it's also, by the way, and this is going on a crypto tangent on it, is that sometimes I get really disturbed when I hear play to earn guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tav, you talk to play to earn guys, and you're more involved, but like they're literally describing Black Mirror episodes and they're talking about like it's a good thing. Like they're like, yeah, man. So if everyone in Venezuela had the option to like have a tablet and all they did on that tablet was they pushed a button like a monkey, they would get like 5 cents every time they pushed that button. And that would be like amazing income for them. And I'm like, did you just create a world where people are tapping tablets to earn to pay for their housing? Like, you just created dystopia. Why is what? This is not a good thing. It's hard. Like it's hard to even like. Does no one read science fiction? Has no one consumed any informative media growing up? Like, did they not figure this out? And so much of like the technological conversations I feel like we have nowadays come up with that and go against that. And one other scary point about the social media thing that I thought about was, okay, even if all the humans leave Twitter or whatever, um, you know, doesn't it keep making money? Like, wouldn't it still look active to the rest of the world? Would advertisers wise up and stop spending money on it? Like, how long would that take? Right? Like, legitimately, could these sites exist as just bots talking to bots? And could they produce value for their billionaire owners when it's just bots talking to bots? Could we have entire economies of bots talking to bots, right? And then, like, where does that money go,
Okay,
right? Is that
so me doing economic design for different crypto, like as a consultant, I will tell you this. This is how Ponzi's are formed, right? Like a lot of
yeah,
play to earn, like you need money to come from some source, right? The most ideal scenario is we drain Elon's bank account, right? If people are complaining the rich need to pay their taxes, like this is your one way to get it back at the man. But in every other world where this happens, right, like it's money in equals money out. And if that balance doesn't exist, then the value that every user gets is zero if nothing's coming in. So you can't have a system where bots are doing bots because where are ads getting money from?
so the social media one makes sense, where it's like eventually the advertiser would be like, "Hey, my ads aren't producing revenue for my product."
Yeah.
It's kind of, because TV ads are still being played, and those are like hyper inefficient, and old school companies are still doing them, right?
Yeah.
Like all the time. Like no one's watching TV, and TV ads are still the best, some of the most the most any advertising agency pays. So there's going to be some level of resistance towards that, and that would take time for them to switch. But maybe eventually they would switch, right? And maybe that would get off. But I do think that like you could in many industries create entire economies around bot labor, right? And that naturally throws the entire balance of like what labor is and what productivity is to a complete whack, because whoever has the most CPU power therefore has the most money, and that might be our road to socialism, which and universal basic income and all those things, which again sounds pretty dope. I don't know a lot of the doomsday stuff I hear about AI. I'm like, I think you guys are describing something good. It'll kill social media. It'll kill. Oh, I actually kind of like dating apps right now, but most people don't seem to like them. They think that that'll be good. It'll, you know, destroy labor as we know it. I'm like, wait, isn't that a good thing? I don't like working. If
I,
the robot's gonna do it for me, if the robot's gonna do it for me, isn't that dope?
I think the issue is this. The way analogy I can give is like when everything is OP, nothing is OP, right? So like your money, your labor, even with the AI, is going to be worth less because the average has shifted. So if like you're not multiplying your value output, right?
I'm sorry, we just had a bot come in our channel who wanted to offer a promotion of our channel. Viewers, followers, chat bots, the price lower than that is impeccable timing, bot. That is hilarious.
That's a little
I didn't
creepy.
mean, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tafo, but that was impressive. That was impressive, the timing on that. I really
So
enjoyed
I
that.
think the scary thing I have is this, right? It does lower the bar for a lot. I think that's the optimistic, like we become more socialistic and things come to an equilibrium. The worrisome thing is like with the internet, like whenever you have a new piece of technology with exponential potential, which I think AI qualifies for, like the wealth discrepancy goes wider, right? Because now you're creating multiplicative slash exponential growth that if you know how to tap into it before someone else is, like the wealth discrepancy just gets wider. Like we can have
Yeah,
trillionaires.
yeah. I mean, I think we already have trillionaires, but they're in Saudi Arabia and they're nation actors, and most people don't view that as a people. I feel like this is like the most well
Like
known secret that the world doesn't talk about. Why does everyone just trust the Forbes 100? Like, why does everyone just assume that some extrapolation of someone's like Jeff Bezos' stock is all his money, right? Like, what's going on right now? Like, do people not know how those numbers are calculated? Like, do they not understand that it's just some dude looking at the cap table of Amazon, looking at his number of shares, looking at the price per share, and then saying, therefore, that's how much money he has?
hey,
They don't actually know his bank account. They don't actually know his assets.
it's as
Like,
accurate as a Forbes Esports organization evaluations.
exactly, right? Like, through our own knowledge, we know how inaccurate they can be, and yet people take it as word of gospel, like that is their net worth. I'm like, how are people this naive? And furthermore, the guys who are actually the richest, like for example the Saudis, who are funneling money from their own country, they have no way of estimating their wealth, and so they don't even make it on the list, right? So there are already trillionaires. It's just they're not on the list. I don't know. I always find it really annoying when hearing people talk about income inequality, and they talk about it in like these terms, which are so much less drastic than they actually are, right?
Is that a bad thing then?
It is a bad thing because income disparity is like the wealth inequality is so insane with the underreported numbers, right? With just looking at it as if all Elon's money is just his Twitter and Tesla and SpaceX stock. But he has a lot more than that. And we all know he has a lot more than that. And also, he's able to make credit lines that are far larger than that, right? Like, he could pull out $300 billion with a credit line from various banks easily. So what difference does it make if they report he has $100 billion, right? He has access to $300 billion more. Access to $300 billion more means that he really has $400 billion, right? Like, fundamentally, right? Now, he'd have to take debt for it, but the point is that that's how much power and leverage he actually has. The power and leverage he actually has is far more than the reporting, and it's far more. The amount of money he has on a period based on his assets is far more than the reporting, and so it's like I don't know. I find wealth inequality discussions very frustrating for that reason because as bad as it is, it's so much worse than people realize. Like people just have not hung out with enough rich people.
So you're saying if I somehow snail mailed everybody's secretary for a $10 million donation to the Smash community, one of them might say yes.
The Smash community is a perfect example of wealth inequality. Our primary problem is that we're all poor. At a relative level.
I thought you were gonna make a controller joke with the way that
no one.
That's go on.
That's our primary problem is that we're all poor, right? And I say the word poor because I know no one likes to call themselves that. But the truth of the matter is, if you're not one of the ultra rich, I'm talking the you got a B next to your name, a Billy, you got 3 commas, you're poor. In the way this country works, and capitalism works. Now you could be less poor and more poor, but for the most part, relative to them, you are poor. So because we don't have commas next to our names as a collective, we don't have people who can actually make the level of difference that those guys can in 2 minutes. Like all these problems, by the way, that you, me, all the people in chat that we are mulling about and stressing about and trying to fix, right, could be solved in like 30 seconds of Elon's time, right? I have spent like my adult life on some of these problems, on how to grow esports and how to make Smash bigger and how to get monetization, all this crap. Like you guys have heard it all. You guys have heard it for so long, right? I spent so much time on it, and Tafel, you've molded all and whatever. And as much time as I spent on it, it would take him 20 seconds, right? It would literally be like, what? There's a Smash Brothers thing? Give it money.
So you're telling me that I should...
It's over.
You're telling me I need to go to Mark Zuckerberg's private poker game that also has people like Phil Hellmuth that I could...
Yes.
I have a, like, 10% chance with my connections to join. And rub shoulders with, like, Elon and Zuckerberg. And pitch Smash.
That would help. I mean, alternatively, you can get your money up, Tafo. What the fuck? You know?
My money up.
You know? Yeah. Why don't you become a billionaire? Do it, right?
Well, I think a lot of people who become a billionaire somehow have to cross paths with other billionaires. So
that's true.
It's like buying rare candies. Or having access to rare candies.
You are about to become more wealthy in your soul, but less wealthy in your life. Because you're about to have a baby.
Yeah, but the flip side... okay. I thought you were saying, like, I'm selling myself out for money. And I'm like, dude, if I could get $1 million, like, or billions of dollars, like, think about the people we can help.
Yeah, absolutely. Including ourselves. Namely me.
Does your family own the largest walnut farm?
They do, but they still don't have 3 commas, Tafo.
Oh, sorry, it's 2.
Okay. 2 commas don't get it done.
It
Like, it
didn't.
just does not get it done.
It did in 2019 before inflation. I'm just kidding.
Aw, so true. Nowadays, standards go up.
What does a banana
Biden,
cost these days? $10?
but I love that quote from Arrested Development.
Yeah.
Now inflation's gone crazy, bro. I mean, just this week, I just spent today. I spent $580 on a freaking mechanic to just fix just like my air conditioner in my car. I was like, bro, it didn't used to be that much, was it?
I
I
don't
gotta
know.
go.
I mean, it depends on car, right? Too. Like if you have a
Dude,
BMW, that might be $1,000.
you go to Erewhon. I know that's an expensive grocery store in SoCal. One apple, costs $3.
Why would you shop there?
Now I wouldn't shop there. I'd go somewhere else.
You're telling you.
But
I think you telling me that price indicates that you have shopped there.
no, wait, chill out. It's $3.50 at Erewhon. Um,
So you do
but
shop there.
isn't that kind of crazy?
Fleur can't
Well,
go for peasant apples now. He has to go to Erewhon for $3.50.
come on.
Caught you ready?
Wait.
Wait,
I would never spend $3.50 on an apple. Not me.
But do you only look at Hustlers magazines for the what was it, the articles?
I see what you're saying. Dude, DJ Well would throw an apple at the cashier. Dude, that's what I'm saying. There needs to be something's got to happen. We got to walk into Erewhon and give them a piece of our minds.
Piece of, but you're poor, so you don't get SA. I think we've gone to the point where we were playing like Ness versus like Young Link on like
Yeah,
Great Bay in terms of
we
discussions.
haven't talked about Melee for a while. We've been talking about
society,
AI, society, art, how poor we are, which I enjoy talking about. It's fun.
This is we're in the Ness versus Pichu on Great Bay, like part of the conversation. Right. We started with our mains, then we got to secondaries, then we went to fun stages, and now it's like, okay, it's that part of the night. Cool.
Oh wait, Tafo.
Yeah.
I actually have a question.
Okay, what is your question?
As you know, I'm thinking about like fun things to do with my time because I haven't exactly been employed. But also, that's okay because I have money. And I've been recently thinking about doing more content again. And I was just wondering from you, chat, whoever, do you have good suggestions? What would be good blur content? And by the way, most likely not going to be Melee because with all due respect to you guys are all poor. As we just described.
Okay, like what is your end goal?
There's too few of you.
What's your end goal? Because it sounds like you want engagement. So is this a question of like what do we like, or what do you think? What do we think will get you engagement?
I want something that I can make routinely that I am not ashamed of making. So don't say porn. I'm not gonna make an OnlyFans as much as you guys want me to. No, I guess I wouldn't be ashamed of making that. I think shame is the wrong word. Nothing wrong with sex work, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, point I was making was I don't know how I got on that tangent. Something that'd be fun, something that would be fun for me to make. That I could routinely make. That would have a wide enough audience to monetize. I don't need to have the biggest audience, just a wide enough audience to monetize. You know what I'm saying? How Blur surprises hot take. Kadoran, how would I don't even know what that video looks like. Avoiding the puddle, but it's the Crimson Blur. I actually think that's a great idea, Johnny. I should probably watch more RS because I feel like the parallels are actually there. I can see that. Cover the Trump indictments, political streams with me. I could actually do that too. I don't think I would do that poorly. I think I'm well read, right, Tav?
Are we though?
The next donkey. I do play a lot of games. Yeah, I do think that's something. Ring Fit stream. I don't like playing Ring Fit.
You can be a
I've never played it before.
you can be a TikTok avatar where if somebody donates the ice cream emote, you say "Yum, ice cream."
You know, I will say that shit would hit though. I think people would find it, especially from me, very funny.
You can be shirtless too.
They'd be like, "What happened?" it'll be like, you know, the domino meme where like the first domino is Dr. Allen starts the panda circuit, and the final domino is Blur shirtless doing the yum yum. Like that's the final that's the final step. That would actually be really funny.
But you actually have to do it. If you do that, then I can hit the domino.
Yeah. Oh my god. Ooh, loves doing an ironic one soon. Yeah, see, I think there's something to be said for the ironic ones. It's pretty funny.
Would you be
That's
able
us.
to just go to Saudi Arabia and just create content like, here's a $1 trillion house?
I don't have $1 trillion.
You know probably somebody there that you can probably connect to that has $1 trillion house.
Tafa, who do you think I am?
The
I
Blur?
don't have someone in Saudi Arabia I know who's gonna give me a tour of his $1 trillion house. I'm a Smash Brothers commentator.
Dude, I'm sure there are people who want to create like, hey, we're not that bad of a country. We want people from America to put us in positive light, and you kind of go like the what was it, James Franco from The Interview, and you pretend like you're this interviewer, and then you get hooked up like it's like North Korea, and then you go there and you do an interview of these rich people and show their houses. I'm sure that would bang.
I like what you're saying, but I want to do the opposite. I think a MTV Cribs of a Smasher's house would go so hard. It'd be like you know the was it Redman? It was Redman, not Method Man, right? It was a Redman episode, I think, of MTV Cribs, where his house is like like mad dirty and like it's super basic. I think that could be pretty freaking funny.
I think people would just get
You
mad.
say, why would they get mad? It'd be really funny.
Because it shows the wealth discrepancy and reminds people that we're all poor.
Yeah, I think but it'd be funny.
It's not
It
inspirational.
would engage. I want engagement. I don't give a fuck if I inspire people.
Because like the flip side of it is like why people like what was it, Cribs is because it's inspiring. It's like I want to get that rich. It's like
Yeah.
um
I too would once like a toaster. That's what it'd be like. We're watching a Smasher. Like, well, wow, it toasts bread. Incredible.
Oh wow. I'm not the only one that lives with a bed mattress with no bed frame.
Yeah.
and like sheets that haven't been washed for 4 months.
It actually would be great storyline content for Smash too. Not that I want to do much Smash stuff, like I said, but I do think like if you just like see how even like our top guys they live, you're like, oh, it would give you a lot of insight.
The issue with that is that like by episode 3 it would just be repetitive.
Yeah, it'd be the same thing.
Here's my refrigerator that has nothing in it but like soda. Here's my
you
Red
need good
Bull.
editing too.
Yeah.
You need good editing. I think so there's actually been some relatively good suggestions. Interview how smart an average Smasher is. That's good. That's good. That's good. Like slime on the scene sort of stuff. What else is there? Let's play an NAS game. I think I'd be really good at gaming challenges because I'm pretty good at games, but I'm not like I think I mostly just have persistence, and I think it's funny to watch someone play hard games and lose mostly. So ask people in the mall if they recognize it. Kadoran's actually dropping bangers. He's actually coming up with some.
You know what I'm wondering is why he doesn't do these things.
Yeah, this is better content than he's ever made. He could just done any of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the saying? Coaches don't get laid. Like when I forget how the saying goes.
That's true. I've liked there is a lot of things that can be done here. I do think Angry Video Game Blur. I think in general video game reviews and some form of that is something that's I could do pretty well. Hot takes, smashes random hot takes and telling me your hot takes. That could do well. But again, Smash base, Yetta. We gotta less Smash, more ass. If you know what I'm saying. Oh, he's already done them all one. Bro, Kadoran, drop it. Drop the banger, bro. That sounds like a good one. Steph understands. Nowadays, our hot takes are all about. I mean, I only have one take on box controllers. It's not. I wouldn't have 8 of them. I think you know what it is.
I really think it'd be really funny. It's like you do a did a smasher say this or did a dictator say it? Did a smasher or a dictator say this? There are some wild like takes when it comes to debating controversial topics in Smash, like controllers. Like it gets into like well like Hitler and Nazis somehow and like making a comparison.
Yeah.
Hey, the one thing about this discourse, because it keeps going circular, is that there's a lot of people that are finally admitting that you were right all along.
That's actually been my entire existence. Is I always love when people say, "Oh, Blur, he's like that guy." You know, he's always like, he's like they act like I'm wrong all the time, and I always love asking those people, "Okay, name one time I was wrong," and they can never do it. Like, "Oh, I don't know." It's like, no. What actually happens is people say I'm wrong in the moment, and then like 5 years later, they're like, "Damn, he was right."
Oh man, I just thought of tomorrow's Twitter content.
I've literally like maybe you can disagree with like some in-game take, but usually when it comes to community stuff and like broader, like I can't even think of a bad take I've had.
Okay, I am just gonna clip this video and just say,
Fuck you.
I'm gonna clip.
No.
I'm gonna clip.
No. Davo, don't do it. Don't you dare game to farm me. Don't you dare.
You know it's gonna bang.
Don't you dare. Because first of all, okay, so people are saying that Pikachu is top 5 thing. I said in game. In game, I admit I obviously had different whims, and though I've mostly been right about that too. I think Pikachu's pretty good. And I also didn't say top 5. I said 6th.
No, you said top
So
3.
give me a break. No, I never said top 3. You're gonna find a quote there. I never said top 3.
You did say top 3.
I definitely didn't say top 3.
You definitely said top 3.
I don't think I said top 3. Also, I'm so stuck on that one because even let's pretend like I don't believe it. I'm like I hate going back on it because it's so part of my identity now. I'm stuck on it. Like what am I supposed to do? Pikachu's broken. That's just how it is. I think we can forgive one. That one's not fair.
Oh gosh, I'm
Also,
gonna.
that's an in-game melee one. In-game melee one. I said community one. It's not fair. I could be wrong about things in melee.
I'm also clipping that.
Oh my god, Taffel, please. Have mercy.
There's so many funny moments.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I probably need to go to bed.
Alright, it was fun.
Alright, who do we raid?
Who's online?
Well, Amsa hates me right now, so I don't know if I can. Should I spite raid him?
Why does Amsa hate you?
Because I've been engagement farming him. Because I wrote the piece about how he should have a secondary, even though he's literally said.
Why, dude? He obviously shouldn't have a secondary. Well, I don't know why you keep. Why? We just talked about it.
Like he's literally been talking all week for like 2 weeks about how he's gonna look at having a secondary. So it's not like I'm bringing this out of a whim.
Yeah.
He's literally saying it on his stream right now.
Tafo, you gotta take a page out of my book and use the eye test. Have you seen his Falco and his Marth?
Oh yeah, it's not.
It's an abomination.
It's not like top 10 level for sure.
No, it's not just top 10 level. It's not high level. It's not top level. It's not. They're not good, man. So like, you can't just be out there being like, bro, he should really work on that Marth of his. I'm like, all right, and then we'll see him in 2 years. Who knows where Melee will be in 2 years? I don't think it's.
I mean, haven't we said that like every year for like half of Melee's history?
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like it's still important. It's still important. It's still an important question. The
Okay.
game won't last forever. We
Okay,
don't actually
so
believe it's going to survive till the heat death of the universe, do we?
we have Mango, Spark,